Chapter 538. After dinner, Kang Yu immediately took a few spirit attendants to prepare Chu Si's residence on Leaning Moon Mountain. Chu Si was Kang Yu's only disciple. Excluding her relationship with Lin Yuan, Chu Si was now considered a true core member of the Radiant Moon Palace. After some careful selection, Kang Yu finally chose a pavilion beside the Radiant Moon Palace's riverside corridor for Chu Si. The pavilion was classic and could smell the fresh fragrance of plants all year round beside the stream flowing with grasswood spring water. This pavilion along the stream wasn't considered close to where Lin Yuan lived. The sun had set, and the sky had already turned dark blue. After Lin Yuan sent Chu Si back to the pavilion, he sat in the pavilion for a while. He found that the furnishings in the pavilion were indeed meticulously arranged by Kang Yu. Although the furnishings in the riverside pavilion looked very elegant, it was in fact unusually luxurious. The vases and utensils on display were all made of celestial river stones. Under the illumination of the warm lights in the pavilion, these celestial river stone bottles rippled with a watercolored halo that was not inferior to the completely jade-textured wood. Moreover, celestial river stones contained yin water qi, which was extremely beneficial to a woman's skin. Not only that, but there was also a jade table made of celestial river jade in the pavilion's main hall. Lin Yuan felt that the celestial river jade table was a little familiar. Suddenly, he remembered that the celestial river jade table in Chu Si's room was Kang Yu's favorite item in her residence. Now, Kang Yu had put her favorite item in Chu Si's room when she was decorating it. Not to mention the celestial river jade table's value. Just by looking at Kang Yu's intentions, it was enough to see how much she doted on Chu Si. After the various spirit fruits in the room were cleaned, they were placed on the elegantly shaped fruit plates made of sea sapphires. These spirit fruits had been picked not long ago, and the water vapor contained in the sea sapphires had a nourishing function. All of a sudden, these freshly picked spirit fruits were even fresher than before they were picked. However, Lin Yuan felt that this room was still lacking something. Suddenly, Lin Yuan had an idea. He thought that he might as well put some of the blackback mountain boar ornaments made of completely jade-textured wood. Chu Si should like it. After staying for a while, Lin Yuan prepared to go back. Before going back, he pressed down the hair on Chu Si's head again and said, "Rest early tonight. I'll pick you up early tomorrow morning, and we'll go back to the other home together." Lin Yuan looked at the dark circles under Chu Si's eyes and could not help but feel a little heartache. She must have been worried about his safety and had not had a good sleep. Chu Si should have been worried about his safety and had not been able to have a good night. "Big brother, I'll watch the star web duels for another hour and learn the timing for other defense-type spirit chi professionals to release shields in battle. After that, we'll have another 1.5 hours of star web duels on the star web tower before going to sleep." Chu Si had a blissful smile on her face as she spoke. Although Chu Si hadn't said anything, she had been shocked again and again over the past 7 days. However, her thoughts were all on Lin Yuan and she did not have the mind to care about other things. After Lin Yuan woke up, Chu Si recalled everything she had experienced in the past few days on the Leaning Moon Mountain with Kang Yu and felt like she was in a dream. Chu Si knew that Lin Yuan had a master. However, she did not expect her brother's master to be the Moon Empress, one of the Radiance Federation's 3 Class 5 creation masters. Aunt Kang, who had always been caring for her, was also one of the Moon Empress Moon Envoys. Chu Si knew that Kang Yu had returned to Redbud City to accompany her because of Lin Yuan's master. Chu Si had never been curious about Kang Yu's identity. Hence, after learning about her identity apart from the initial shock, Chu Si did not think too much about it. Looking at the living environment in front of her, she felt that everything that had happened in the past few days was too unreal. After looking at Lin Yuan for a long time, Chu Si suddenly felt at ease. In her heart, as long as Lin Yuan was there would always be someone to hold up the sky and earth for her. This was not just a feeling of dependence, but a feeling of home wherever Lin Yuan was. For the first 15 years of Chu Si's life, it could be said that she had been relying on Lin Yuan ever since she could remember. They only had a small home. But now, there were 2 big families, and it was really good to have Lin Yuan in both of them. Lin Yuan originally wanted to tell Chu Si not to stay up late tonight if she had not rested well before. However, he did not know how to say this. His sister was so hardworking and still had to learn combat skills for an hour and a half at night. After learning combat skills, she still had to fight for another hour and a half to consolidate the knowledge she had learned. It could be said that she had made hard work a kind of life habit. As her brother, he should not object to such an outstanding habit. Lin Yuan could say that he would have plenty of opportunities to learn in the future and was not in a hurry. However, in the process of growth, every step of the journey was under one's feet. With every small step taken, one could see further scenery. This kind of harvest that could only be obtained today could not be made up for tomorrow no matter how much time was spent tomorrow. This was because this harvest only belonged to today and not tomorrow. Lin Yuan was sincerely proud of Chu Si in his heart. Moreover, he had just heard Chu Si say that she wanted to learn the skill of setting up a shield. This was simply amazing. His sister was finally a mature iron bucket. She knew how to make herself harder. After leaving the riverside pavilion where Chu Si lived, Lin Yuan planned to return to the pavilion where he lived. He had only woken up after being in a coma for 7 days. It was time to soak in the hot spring and clean himself up. Then at night, he would use his creation master identity to log on to Star Web and settle the things that should have been dealt with while he was unconscious. Including the time he had been sucked into the dimensional rift to fight and the time he had been unconscious, it had been almost 10 days. The group welfare that he had mentioned in the purchase with No Lost Stores fan club was the auction of the 10 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. It should have started as early as 2 days ago. Due to his coma, Lin Yuan had logged on to Star Web 2 days late, which was equivalent to missing 2 days of the group welfare. Now that he had woken up, he naturally had to quickly auction off the 10 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that the group welfare had mentioned. The first update. I'll definitely add an update tomorrow. There are a lot of things to do these 2 days. I'll definitely add an update. I'll definitely add an update for Zhong Wushuang. Amber button, Gugugu, I learned it from Lin Yuan. There will be another update later. If everyone is sleepy, rest at this time. Moi. End of this chapter. Chapter 540. Pan Yu was angry in her heart, and Jin Qi happened to bump into the muzzle of the gun. Pan Yu glared at Jin Qi. She noticed that Jin Qi's lips were stained with melted black chow when she was eating the black chow. Pan Yu snorted, "Your mouth is filthy." Then, he turned around and prepared to return to his residence and log into the Star Web to meet up with Jimei. Jin Qi really didn't understand. Didn't she just ask Jin Qi, "What did you do just now? Why was his mouth full of filth?" "I didn't scold you." Jin Qi wasn't a pushover, but because she couldn't keep up with Pan Yu's pace, she couldn't immediately counterattack. He could only be alone in the wind. Lin Yuan happened to pass by Jin Qi and saw her messy appearance in the wind. Lin Yuan immediately remembered who this girl in front of him was. This girl was none other than the spirit attendant who had been with Wen Yu when her essence had been damaged. She had always been looking for trouble with Wen Yu. Upon seeing the girl standing there in a daze, Lin Yuan felt that he should explain to her. She said, "Your mouth is full of filth because there is a lot of black powder on the corners of your mouth." Under the night sky, Lin Yuan felt that the black hair stuck to the corner of the girl's mouth looked like nose hair coming out of her nostrils. Jin Qi didn't expect that someone would suddenly speak up beside her. She subconsciously turned to look at the person who spoke. Jin Qi immediately bent down at the sight of it. "Greetings, Lord Lin Yuan." Jin Qi might have had other thoughts about Lin Yuan in the past. At this moment, Jin Qi's fear of Lin Yuan was far more than her other thoughts. Who knew if Wen Yu had said anything bad about him after being with Lin Yuan for such a long time? Lin Yuan had always had a bad impression of Jin Qi. It wasn't that what Jin Qi did was necessarily wrong. It was just that some people's hearts were like flowers and trees when they were moving forward, growing towards the sun. Some people's thoughts are like garlic, growing in the shade. Compared to people who grew up in the shade, people who lived in the sun were undoubtedly more recognized by Lin Yuan. However, even if he did not like Jin Qi, he would not do anything to her. Lin Yuan nodded at Jin Qi and walked toward the pavilion that he lived in. After seeing Lin Yuan walk far away, Jin Qi hurriedly let out a sigh of relief. Jin Qi realized that she was beside Lin Yuan at that moment, but Lin Yuan did not target her. Instead, he nodded at her. He had no intention of taking revenge for Wen Yu. Jin Qi was somewhat enlightened. When Wen Yu had returned to the Radiant Moon Palace, she had also seen her and nodded at her. He didn't do anything to her. Thinking of this, Jin Qi stood blankly in the dark. He felt that he had been too harsh towards Wen Yu previously. Now that he thought about it, those harsh words really did seem a little repulsive. Jin Qi stood under the night sky for a long time, staring blankly at the crooked willow in front of her. Perhaps it was because it was the new year, but a new branch grew out of the crooked willow. On the crooked trunk of the willow, the new branch was trying its best to grow upwards. It was perfectly straight. After Lin Yuan returned to his pavilion, he opened the restriction on the hot spring in the pavilion. Immediately, the hot spring was filled with warm spring water. Lin Yuan was quietly soaking in the hot spring pool, enjoying the rare tranquility. Although his faction, Sky City, had just started, it already had a rough prototype. In terms of martial strength, he had the Mother of Bloodbath and Endless Summer, which were two Emperor-class experts. At present, it was enough to contend with the veteran factions. In terms of resources, Morbius' exclusive skill, Spirit Lock Spatial Zone, was a treasure trove that constantly produced resources. It was also the foundation of Lin Yuan's private faction, Sky City. In terms of martial strength, Lin Yuan had never stopped recruiting people. He just wanted to recruit people like Zhu Luo, who had comprehended multiple willpower runes, with the current reputation of his purchase with no loss store. However, it was not easy to recruit king-class experts who did not have any powerful main phase. Finding Zhu Luo was like a blind cat bumping into a dead mouse. Moreover, apart from these king-class white-clothed servants who might be recruited, there were even higher bets on combat power. Given Lin Yuan's private faction's reputation, it was unlikely to recruit them. After all, Sky City had not shown anything that could attract pinnacle king-class experts. In fact, in Lin Yuan's opinion, running a private faction was different, and the most important support lay in the accumulation of resources. Lin Yuan felt that it was time for him to operate Sky City as a huge business machine. With commerce as the business model, he would swallow all kinds of resources. Lin Yuan now had his own pressure in the collection of resources. As the owner of Sky City, he had so many partners and subordinates. These people had offered their loyalty to him, so Lin Yuan had to think of a way to get these abundant resources. Not only that, but the two Earth phase, the floating island whale and the cloud crane, had yet to hatch. Every time the floating island whale absorbed the pure and huge spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone, it needed to consume the air-type and water-type Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. But to Lin Yuan, the real place to spend money was not on preparing to hatch the floating island whale in the crystal eggshell. Instead, it was how to raise the floating island whale after it hatched. If the floating island whale wanted to rise into the sky and become a behemoth that could carry a city, then the most basic requirement was to increase its grade to suzerain. The amount of resources consumed was something that even the true veteran forces could only look at and shrink back from. Lin Yuan had to think of a way to invest such a high amount of resources. In addition, the cloud crane was a spiritual type earth fae. If he wanted to increase its spiritual power and let it turn into clouds that could completely envelop the floating island whale, he would need to feed it enough spiritual type spiritual ingredients. The cloud crane needed to be fed with enough spiritual type spiritual ingredients. The cloud crane was not the only one that needed to consume spiritual type spiritual ingredients. Chu Ci was about to contract the fairy source type burning sunflower, Liu Jie's insect queen, and Wen Yu's pain illusory fox. The growth of these spiritual type phase required the consumption of spiritual type spiritual ingredients. Among the spiritual ingredients in Lin Yuan's hands, spiritual type spiritual ingredients were the most lacking. At the same time, spiritual type spiritual ingredients were relatively rare among the various spiritual ingredients. Lin Yuan got up from the hot spring and went ashore. After wiping his body, he changed into a set of spirit chi clothes that Wen Yu had carefully designed. Even though Lin Yuan had ditched them twice, it was as if he had run away. While Bai was on the phone with Liu Jie, Lin Yuan had already asked Listen to help him inform the purchase with No Lost Stores fan club. Lin Yuan had already ditched them for 2 days, so he had to stick to the agreed time tonight. Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 541. There was still 1 hour left until the scheduled time for the group welfare auction, which was 10 o'clock. Lin Yuan planned to buy some spiritual-type spiritual ingredients on StarWeb during this hour. However, this time, Lin Yuan did not want to buy spiritual-type spiritual ingredients from the Rare Lifeform Pavilion as usual. Instead, he wanted to go to a veteran faction's StarWeb private territory to make an appointment to choose a fae. This fae was the signature aquatic fae that this veteran faction had nurtured. Such water-type faes could produce the spiritual-type spiritual ingredients that Lin Yuan needed. Lin Yuan logged into StarWeb as a creation master. After logging in, Lin Yuan went to the purchase with No Loss store. He put away his gains from the blind trade with the flower brocade pearls. This time, Lin Yuan realized that he had actually exchanged for 515 mid-grade strange flames through the blind trade with the flower brocade pearls. As word of mouth fermented, more and more people knew about the group welfare in the purchase with No Loss Stores fan club. They were willing to consume a lot of resources in order to join the purchase with No Loss Stores fan club in exchange for the qualification to auction the group welfare. Lin Yuan was still very happy, as the network he had established with the purchase with No Loss Stores fan club was getting bigger and bigger. Lin Yuan put away these 515 mid-grade strange flames that he had exchanged through blind trade and could not help but smack his lips. Because he had been unconscious for 10 days, he had been unable to log into StarWeb. Otherwise, he could have sold 2 batches of the flower brocade pearls through the blind trade. He believed that many people or factions who wanted to enter the purchase with No Loss Stores fan club in order to exchange for the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls would be willing to pay the price. This was definitely a good time to harvest leeks. Perhaps he did not need to personally harvest leeks. He only needed to stretch out the sickle, and the leeks would stretch out their bodies. Then, they would impatiently use their bodies to touch the sickle's blade. After Lin Yuan logged into StarWeb, he immediately received a message from Listen. Lin Yuan had already spoken to Listen on the phone. Listen already knew that Lin Yuan was safe at that time, so he did not continue to ask about his well-being. Instead, he sent a document. After Lin Yuan opened the document, he saw the contents. He could not help but raise his brows. Most of the contents of the document were attacking his purchase with No Loss store. The spearhead of the attack was also pointed at the fact that he, the group leader, had run away twice in order to not fulfill the group welfare auction. The documents sent by Listen were arranged in chronological order. Thus, as he looked on, he slowly discovered that the problem started from the fan group welfare of the purchase with No Loss store. Slowly, it was all about his identity. This document also mentioned Black's name multiple times, and plenty of people were comparing their creation master status to Black's. Among them, Lin Yuan also saw Madman Zuan and Poison Beauty. Lin Yuan was a little stunned. Wasn't Madman Zuan the leader of Black's official fan club? And what about Poison Beauty? As a creation master, I don't even know Poison Beauty. Why is she standing on my side? With his meager strength, he was able to crazily compete with a large number of fans of his Black identity. Could it be because I used Black's identity to kill Poison Beauty twice during the StarWeb stairway duels? After Lin Yuan calmly browsed through it twice, he closed the document. His 2 identities were like left and right hands to him. What was there to compare? When Lin Yuan had chosen to separate these 2 identities, it was precisely because of the different abilities of the 2 identities. Therefore, Lin Yuan had decided to split these 2 identities into a creation master and a combat class spirit chi professional. He was afraid that a quarrel between his own fans on StarWeb would only happen to him. At that moment, Listen sent another message. Young master, this matter is really a little strange. How should we deal with it? Lin Yuan looked at Listen and said the word strange. He felt that Listen must be holding back his laughter at this moment. Wasn't it strange for left and right to fight each other? However, Lin Yuan did not intend to ask about this matter. The key was that Lin Yuan did not know how to solve this matter. He could not possibly reveal his identity. Moreover, even if he revealed his identity, Don Rao's first reaction would definitely be to think that he was joking. Anyway, the group welfare auction could be carried out normally at 10 p.m. This storm regarding his purchase with no loss stores group welfare was over. After giving a few instructions to listen, Lin Yuan went to visit the territory of the veteran faction, the Aquarium of Bliss, as an ordinary Star Web user. One look at the name of the veteran faction, the Aquarium of Bliss, and he knew that it was a faction that mainly nurtured aquatic phase. However, it was different from the Spirit Chi professionals who had comprehended willpower runes that Lin Yuan wanted Sky City to create tailor-made high-quality bronze phase according to the willpower rune they comprehended. The Aquarium of Bliss operated mainly by selling rare normal aquatic phase. However, most of these rare and normal aquatic phase were extremely delicate. In the past few decades, the veteran faction, the Aquarium of Bliss, had nurtured these rare and delicate phase in large quantities. They could already breed these rare aquatic phase on a large scale, which was very profitable. This time, Lin Yuan thought of the fae that the veteran faction, the Aquarium of Bliss, needed to trade. It was the Aquarium of Bliss's signature fae, the Angelfish of Bliss. During the growth process, the Angelfish of Bliss would completely shed all the scales on its body. After shedding, the scales would turn into a fish coat with 5 colors and sink to the bottom of the water. The fish coat produced by the Angelfish of Bliss was the best food for nurturing spiritual type phase. In fact, it was not that there were no other spiritual ingredients that could replace the fish coat of the Angelfish of Bliss. It was just that most of the spiritual ingredients produced by other spiritual type phase were inseparable parts of the phase. In order to remove these spiritual ingredients, the spiritual type phase had to be killed. If Lin Yuan were to obtain spiritual ingredients like this, he did not know how many spiritual type phase he would need to nurture and kill. The advantage of the Angelfish of Bliss was that it could continue to develop like the Usnias. When the Angelfish of Bliss took off its fish coat, it was like a person cutting their nails. After a period of time, it would grow out again. Although it was very difficult to nurture the Angelfish of Bliss, it was not a problem for Lin Yuan. As long as he could have an outstanding Angelfish of Bliss, it would be fine. Lin Yuan used the Star Web's teleportation function to teleport to the veteran faction, the Aquarium of Bliss's private territory. He immediately read the latest chapter of the Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 542. As soon as he entered the Aquarium of Bliss's private territory, Lin Yuan found that he seemed to have entered an underwater world rippling with light. Just the rippling blue light alone made the private territory of the Aquarium of Bliss, a veteran force, look rather extraordinary. After looking at the blue crystals embedded in the ground under his feet, Lin Yuan understood what was going on with the arrangement of the Aquarium of Bliss's private territory. It seemed that the Aquarium of Bliss had embedded a large amount of Milky River sand in the ground, and there should be some top-notch energy ores containing a lot of spirit chi under the ground. Under the rendering of the spirit chi seeping out of the top-notch energy ores, the Milky River sand embedded in the ground would ripple with clear blue water light. However, Lin Yuan was used to seeing good things. He always felt that although this blue light had momentum, its color was slightly mixed and not smooth enough. In particular, Lin Yuan had just come out of the pavilion along the stream that Cold Moon had set up for Chu Ci. The clear blue rippling in the entire Aquarium of Bliss's private territory was not as clear as the clear blue water light in the small pavilion along the stream where Chu Ci lived. It could not be compared to the jade table made of Milky River jade in the pavilion. Just compared to those bottles made of Milky River stone, the water light in front of him was much less clear. After all, Milky River sand was only a mineral wrapped on the surface of Milky River stone. However, just the large amount of Milky River sand used was not a small amount. After all, the Star Web's private territory was not small. It was already a very imposing thing to mix Milky River sand on the ground in such a large territory. Otherwise, if some places cut corners and added a little less Milky River sand, the rippling blue water light would not fuse together. If the blue water light could not fuse together, the Aquarium of Bliss's private territory would immediately lose the feeling of an underwater world. Lin Yuan sighed. If he had to spread so much Milky River sand on his private territory, he would not be able to afford it. If he did not sell the spiritual ingredients that represented his foundation, he would not be able to afford it. After all, he would not easily trade the source-type items he had hoarded or the items on suzerain myth breed phase, especially the essence blood and lore crystals of suzerain myth breed phase. The bronze legend elemental shellfish in the spirit lock spatial zone constantly produced heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls. He would not easily use them unless he traded for foundational spiritual ingredients and phase. After all, good steel must be spent on the blade. Fortunately, a new batch of completely jade-textured wood had matured during his long coma. These matured, completely jade-textured wood gave him a huge wave of pocket money. Before he could take a closer look at the other arrangements in the private territory of the Aquarium of Bliss, a veteran faction, the Aquarium of Bliss had arrived. A middle-aged man in a blue robe walked in front of him and sized him up from head to toe before speaking. If you want to trade aquatic phase here, you will first need to purchase an Immortal Bliss token. Each Immortal Bliss token will allow you to trade one aquatic fae from the Aquarium of Bliss. After saying that, the middle-aged man shook his hand and handed over a white fish plate sculpture that was dotted with specks of sky-blue crystals. Lin Yuan took a look at the carving of the angelfish of bliss and looked at the fine bone patterns on the white surface of the carving. Lin Yuan immediately knew that this Immortal Bliss token's main material should be the fish bones of a kind of fish fae. The blue crystals embedded on the fish card were obviously of a higher quality than the heavenly river sand on the ground. But from the looks of it, Lan Du wasn't at the level of a Sky River stone. It was only a slightly better Sky River sand. Lin Yuan secretly raised his brows and immediately understood that this fish card carving should be the business method of a veteran faction, the Aquarium of Bliss. This method of operation was exactly the same as the destiny letter he had envisioned. Not only could he show off his private force, but he could also use this method to absorb resources. When the blue-robed middle-aged man saw that Lin Yuan was looking at the Immortal Bliss card in his hand without making a sound, he coughed and said, "You're right. If you don't buy the Immortal Bliss token, you won't be qualified to enter." In the face of this situation, Lin Yuan blinked and felt slightly uncomfortable. Previously, he had always been harvesting other people's leaks. Now that he was trading in another veteran power's private territory, he had become the other party's leak. Lin Yuan asked as he looked at the fish carving with a little bit of Milky Way sand. "How much is one?" The blue-robed middle-aged man frowned and said, "This plate isn't called the fish plate, it's called the Immortal Bliss plate. This ordinary blissful immortal card is only 50,000 radiance dollars for one." The blue-robed man frowned, but it wasn't because Lin Yuan had called the Immortal Bliss card a fish card. Instead, someone had come to the Aquarium of Bliss to trade, and he didn't even know the price of the Immortal Bliss medallion, the proof of entry to the Aquarium of Bliss. The Aquarium of Bliss Star Web faction territory wasn't like the Fey market where one could casually stroll around. Most of the people who came had rare aquatic fays that they clearly wanted to trade. Anyone who entered the private territory of the Aquarium of Bliss with the purpose of sightseeing was also blacklisted by the Aquarium of Bliss. His authority would be set, and he would be kicked out of the Aquarium of Bliss private territory on Star Web. Furthermore, they would never be able to enter again. As a veteran force, the Aquarium of Bliss was qualified to be the owner of such an evil shop. This was the benefit of almost monopolizing a few rare aquatic fays. The blue-robed man muttered, "You'd better come here to trade, not to hang around." Then, he continued to patiently introduce. "Take the ordinary Immortal Bliss plate and go inside to trade for fays. You won't be able to choose. You can only say the species, and our Aquarium of Bliss will help you choose. Of course, the Immortal Bliss plate is only a trading qualification. When you trade for specific aquatic fays, you still need to pay for specific aquatic fays. Due to the different qualifications of each aquatic fay, the price is also different. I have to remind you that even if you buy a lot of ordinary Immortal Bliss plates, you can still choose multiple fish fays. However, if you don't buy the last one that you didn't fancy, you won't be qualified to continue looking even if you have the Immortal Bliss plate." Upon hearing this, Lin Yuan frowned. This immortal bliss plate mixed with a little bit of milky river sand was probably not as expensive as an item mixed with completely jade-textured wood powder. It could definitely be bought for 10,000 radiance dollars and below. It had to be known that 50,000 radiance dollars could completely buy a fish plate carving with milky river jade fragments. Of course, Lin Yuan didn't care about this. Anyway, buying the immortal bliss plate was equivalent to buying a ticket. However, not being able to choose for himself was simply too much of a scam. End of this chapter. Chapter 543. The Aquarium of Bliss was truly a goddamn genius. They had actually completed the Fey transaction as a fortune bag. Isn't this the same as saying that even if you spend money to buy my fish phase, if you don't buy enough, you won't be able to buy good quality? If you want good quality, you have to pack up all the stuff you don't need. With this, the Aquarium of Bliss wouldn't have to worry about sales anymore. In fact, he didn't even have to bear the loss of some fays with poor aptitudes and could be distributed for others to pack up. This was simply too vicious. Lin Yuan wanted to purchase the angelfish of bliss so that it could produce a spiritual-type fish coat. At the very least, he had to raise the angelfish of bliss to epic grade. If it was a young angelfish of bliss, then Lin Yuan's efforts would have been in vain. Lin Yuan felt that he couldn't possibly buy dozens of ordinary immortal bliss cards that were mixed with the Milky Way sand and prepare to buy a large number of substandard angelfish of bliss before entering the fish gambling hall. When the blue-robed man was talking about the immortal bliss card, he had emphasized the word ordinary. That meant that the immortal bliss token, which served as an entrance ticket, had an even more advanced existence. I wonder if there are any unusual immortal bliss tokens. Upon hearing that, the blue-robed man flipped his hand and took out a slightly larger immortal bliss card. He saw that the bigger immortal bliss token had blue dots on it, and it was much more transparent than the smaller immortal bliss token. At a glance, Lin Yuan knew that the larger immortal bliss card had been mixed with milky river stone fragments. Lin Yuan only heard the blue-robed man say, "Anyone who buys this high-grade immortal bliss tablet will become an honored guest of my Aquarium of Bliss. The price of a high-grade immortal bliss card is only 200,000 radiance dollars, but you can enjoy two privileges compared to buying an ordinary immortal bliss card that costs 50,000 radiance dollars. The first privilege is that after you enter, our staff will give you 100 fish fays of your designated species." Lin Yuan's eyes lit up after hearing the blue-robed man's words. Although the price of a high-grade immortal bliss token was equivalent to the price of 4 ordinary immortal bliss tokens, one could see 100 angelfish of bliss in one go. That was equivalent to spending 4 times the price to enjoy 100 times the happiness. This was just the first privilege, and it was already so awesome. Lin Yuan could not help but start to look forward to the second privilege. Lin Yuan heard the blue-robed man speak again. The second privilege is that you can choose to give up these 100 designated fish fays and exchange for a new batch. Before Lin Yuan could have the thought of spending 4 times the price and experiencing 200 times the happiness, Lin Yuan felt that something was wrong. The man in the blue robe cleared his throat and reminded. Of course, in addition to the special privileges, you also have to pay attention to the fact that the advanced Immortal Bliss card's fish selection method is to buy all 100 fish from the designated batch at once, not just a few of them. But if there are no accidents, there will be some decent ones among these 100 listening fays. Most people who come to the Aquarium of Bliss for the second time won't choose a normal Immortal Bliss tablet. They will all choose a high-grade Immortal Bliss tablet. Upon hearing the blue-robed man's words, Lin Yuan's previous feeling of spending money to experience happiness completely vanished. At the end of the day, this high-grade Immortal Bliss token was equivalent to buying a large fortune bag. It was just that he could spend less of the ordinary Immortal Bliss token as a bargaining chip. However, the prerequisite for saving on the price of the ordinary Immortal Bliss token was to buy 100 angelfish of different qualities in one go. Who could withstand that? Moreover, from the blue-robed man's words, if there are no accidents, there will be some decent ones, and all people who come to the Aquarium of Bliss for the second time will choose a high-grade Immortal Bliss token. It was obvious how difficult it was to find an angelfish of bliss with excellent qualities. Probably only 1 or 2 of them would be of high quality out of hundreds of them. Lin Yuan wanted more than 1 or 2 angelfish of bliss with high qualities. A long time ago, Hu Quan had discussed with Lin Yuan about expanding the mansion's artificial lake. They would then use winding corridors and pavilions to encircle a water garden. Lin Yuan planned to rear some angelfish of bliss in the water under the water garden. The angelfish of bliss was very good-looking, even though they were not selected as the top 10 most beautiful fays like the blue flash butterfly. However, they would still be able to enter the top 100. It was simply killing 2 birds with 1 stone to rear some angelfish of bliss in the mansion's artificial lake. It could also produce spiritual ingredients to nurture spiritual-type fays. Given Lin Yuan's huge needs, he felt that no matter how thick his leek was, it would not be enough for the aquarium of bliss to harvest. Lin Yuan had chosen to buy angelfish of bliss from the aquarium of bliss because of convenience. Although angelfish of bliss were very delicate and rare, and the aquarium of bliss was named after them. However, angelfish of bliss were not unique to the aquarium of bliss. Lin Yuan had previously carefully checked some information about angelfish of bliss. The aquarium of bliss's supreme-grade angelfish of bliss shed their fish coats, which were far inferior to those that were naturally bred. However, after the aquarium of bliss improved the angelfish of bliss, they could breed in large numbers, and over time, they became their signature. At the end of the day, Lin Yuan was too lazy to post trades in his purchase with no loss store and buy them one by one. After seeing the aquarium of bliss's trap, Lin Yuan had wanted to leave. However, he immediately felt that since he was here, he might as well buy 2 high-grade angelfish of bliss cards and go in to choose 2 batches to see his luck. Even if the harvest was not good, he would buy these 200 angelfish of bliss, upgrade their quality to bronze flawless, and then sell them. He would still be able to make a profit. He would not let them rot in his hands for no reason. Therefore, Lin Yuan said to the blue-robed man, "Give me 2 high-grade immortal bliss cards then." The blue-robed man flipped his hand and took out another high-grade immortal bliss card. The blue-robed man flipped his hand and took out another high-grade immortal bliss card. He took out the new high-grade immortal bliss token and handed it to Lin Yuan along with the one he already had. 2 high-grade immortal bliss cards for 400,000 radiance dollars. Transfer them to me directly. 2 high-grade immortal bliss cards. You'll definitely have a harvest. Lin Yuan found that the blue-robed man always liked to chew on words when he spoke. After Lin Yuan asked for 2 high-grade immortal bliss cards, the blue-robed man changed his words from almost to definitely. Lin Yuan vaguely guessed that the aquarium of bliss's angelfish of bliss would only have 1 high-grade existence out of every 200. The second one was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 544. Just as Lin Yuan was about to transfer 400,000 radiance dollars, he heard the blue-robed man speak. The private territory of the aquarium of bliss only receives 10 customers at a time. You're currently the 27th in line, so you'll have to wait for a while. As soon as Lin Yuan heard that, he was not in a hurry to pay 400,000 radiance dollars. Instead, he looked at the time. Lin Yuan realized that there were only 40 minutes left before the group welfare auction at 10 p.m. How long do I have to wait to be ranked 17th? The blue-robed man's eyes widened when he heard this. He felt as if he had seen through this young man wearing a strange mask. What's the matter? Are you in a hurry to trade with the aquarium of bliss? The blue-robed man thought. No matter what reason this brat came up with, as long as he didn't buy the 2 high-grade immortal blissful tokens, he was just toying with her. Asking this and that, he had been talking for a long time. The blue-robed man had already made up his mind. As long as the masked youth in front of him did not pay up, he would kick him out. The blue-robed man said with a fake smile. 2 hours at the earliest. It's already considered short for you to wait for only 2 hours. If you're unlucky, there are many people who come at noon and wait until the next morning. As soon as Lin Yuan heard that, he knew that he couldn't buy it now. I still have some time. Since I have to wait for 2 hours, I'll buy these 2 after I'm done. Before he could finish speaking, he found himself teleported back to the purchase with no loss store by Star Web. According to the information on the Star Web, he was suddenly kicked out of the private territory of the aquarium of bliss by the blue-robed man. Furthermore, he was blacklisted, never to enter again. Lin Yuan couldn't help but have a head full of black money. Even if Lin Yuan had a good temper, he couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. What the hell is this? Isn't the aquarium of bliss a little too overbearing? Aren't you afraid of suffering losses? Previously, Lin Yuan had nothing to do with the Aquarium of Bliss, a veteran faction. However, the Aquarium of Bliss had been invisibly added to his blacklist. He was kicked out of the Aquarium of Bliss private territory by the blue-robed man. Even if he did not want to go through the trouble of posting an exchange in the purchase with no loss store, there were other ways. The angelfish of bliss was an aquatic fae that could live in both seawater and freshwater, but it appeared more frequently in the ocean. Presumably, the GAO family was a rich and powerful family that focused on developing marine resources in the sea. After all, the GAO family was a top force that could even trade the elemental shellfish and the floating island whale. There were still a few more days before the New Year's Day, and Lin Yuan did not wish to trouble Gao Feng before the New Year's Day. Otherwise, he would have just given Gao Feng a call, and this matter would have been settled. On the other side, the blue-robed man suddenly felt that he had been too impulsive. He really shouldn't have kicked him out just like that. He should be scolded and kicked. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a waste of time to say goodbye? The blue-robed man counted with his fingers. He had already lost count of the number of people who came to watch the show but did not buy anything today. He placed another 10 pots of flower brocade pearls in his purchase with no loss store. However, Lin Yuan did not intend to use the blind trade method to exchange for the mid-grade strange flames this time. Instead, he changed it to a spiritual material called aurora pollen. Lin Yuan simply had too many mid-grade strange flames, and he would not be able to use them all in a short time. There was no benefit in hoarding spirit materials like mid-grade strange flames. To Lin Yuan, the mid-grade strange flames were only used to promote chimeous quality. As for the aurora pollen, it was the best food to feed the angelfish of bliss. The aurora pollen could rapidly let the angelfish of bliss grow scales and take off the fish coat on its body. Moreover, the aurora pollen could make the delicate angelfish of bliss even more tenacious. The exclusive skill, place of life, of the 3 Mountain River eternal life carps in Lin Yuan's manor was enough to protect the delicate angelfish of bliss. However, in order to let the angelfish of bliss produce the best fish coat, feeding it aurora pollen was definitely the right thing to do. The aurora pollen was the powder on the stamens of the aurora morning glory's bud. If Lin Yuan nurtured the aurora morning glory, he could also collect the aurora pollen. However, compared to the delicate angelfish of bliss, the aurora morning glory was simply unreasonable and torturous. Someone had to constantly scrape the pollen off the aurora morning glory stamens for the stamens to secrete more aurora pollen. Lin Yuan wasn't interested in personally nurturing such a torturous fae. It wasn't that Lin Yuan didn't think of using the brocade lotus pearl to exchange for the angelfish of bliss. However, the price of the wild angelfish of bliss and the golden lotus pearl wasn't equal. If someone used the angelfish of bliss bred by the aquarium of bliss to exchange, Lin Yuan wouldn't want to accept it either. After setting up the blind trade, Lin Yuan sat there leisurely. He was prepared to quietly wait for the group welfare auction to begin and see what the group members were talking about during this period of time. He opened the group chat and saw the 9,999 plus messages in his purchase with no loss stores fan club. Lin Yuan couldn't help but complain. Are my group members' mouths made of machine guns? However, after Lin Yuan opened the group chat and scrolled through the chat history, he knew how the dozens of people in the group had flooded the 9,999 plus messages. It seemed like the only thing that could defeat a machine gun was a repeater. Nearly half of the messages were repeats and some strange emojis. Lin Yuan felt that even if he starved to death, he wouldn't be able to finish scrolling through and see what other useful things the group members said. However, the messages in the group jumped very quickly. While waiting, Lin Yuan didn't feel bored. He quietly opened the group chat and looked at the chat of the purchase with no loss stores fan club. With one look, Lin Yuan's attention was attracted by the words of a group member called Recluse Study. Recluse Study, is there a treasure living in Indigo Azure City in the group? I have a cantaloupe here. It's fragrant and sweet, and it's enough to eat. Lin Yuan had been unconscious in the dimensional rift outside Indigo Azure City and had just woken up today. He couldn't help but be curious about what kind of cantaloupe had appeared in Indigo Azure City. There were only a few people in the purchase with no loss store. Every time someone sold melons, a group of people would always gather around. Time. What else can there be during this period of time? It's just some news about the dimensional rift opening. Regional sleeping god, Indigo Azure City is near the sea. Could a Class 4 dimensional rift have appeared? Jiawei, eat melons in the front row. If the melon isn't sweet, offer your head. Recluse study, you're supporting my body, but my melon is absolutely fragrant and sweet enough. Top secret news, I heard that some time ago, the bright moon in the sky was related to a young man. Add updates for unparalleled in the world. Sob, 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 sob for several days. First, I'll make up for one more update, then another update. Seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 545. After seeing the message sent by Recluse Study in the Purchase with No Loss Stores fan club, Lin Yuan's eyes immediately narrowed. The Purchase with No Loss Stores fan club, which was usually very active, immediately went into an uproar after seeing Recluse Study's message. Red Spider Lily Bloom. Brother, you can even eat this kind of melon? You're quite capable. Kai Zhongling. Brother, I just want to ask if this melon is real. Or did you type the words bright moon hanging high wrongly? Recluse Study seemed to have expected that ordinary people would find it hard to believe his melon. However, Recluse Study didn't explain his previous actions. Instead, he said, you're right. Instead, he said, I'm not very capable, and I'm not from a big family. However, my uncle is a very powerful freelance spirit chi professional. Recluse Study, my uncle saw it with his own eyes, so it naturally can't be wrong. As soon as Recluse Study said that, even though many people still said they did not believe it, they started to inquire about it indirectly. Lin Yuan's Purchase with No Loss Stores fan club only had the first batch of members. They had joined by snatching usnias and spirit siphon goldfish at the beginning. However, there were not many people in the first batch. Even after Lin Yuan removed the usnias and spirit siphon goldfish from the shelves, they did not increase much. Due to the strict defense of these members who had entered the fan club earlier, they were so stable that they went to wait for Lin Yuan's new usnias and spirit siphon goldfish in the Star Web store almost all day. This caused the usnias and spirit siphon goldfish to be almost monopolized by these people in the fan club. This made it harder and harder for newcomers to join the Star Web store's fan club by snatching usnias and spirit siphon goldfish. Especially after Lin Yuan used the flower brocade pearls to carry out a blind trade, the number of people with status and resources in the Purchase with No Loss Stores fan club had increased significantly. Recluse Study had recently used a large number of mid-grade strange flames to exchange for the flower brocade pearls. Since a wealthy person like Recluse Study dared to say that his family had seen it with their own eyes. Even if this melon was not necessarily accurate, it was most likely true. 9 days ago. The bright moon hung high, and the moonlight was dyed with blood. The bright moon covered the sun that should have existed in the world. Perhaps many ordinary people did not know what was going on when the world changed its color. However, anyone with a bit of knowledge would associate it with the supreme moon, which no one dared to talk about easily. That was why Recluse Study's words had attracted the attention of almost everyone in the group. At that moment, a member of the group called Sleeping Addiction asked Recluse Study a question that everyone else had been wanting to ask. Sleeping Addiction. Brother, you said that the moon is related to a young man. Who is this young man? Recluse Study replied immediately. Recluse Study. I heard from my uncle that they might be master and disciple. As soon as Recluse Study sent this message, Addiction to Sleep replied below. Sleeping Addiction. I envy this young man. Immediately after, Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and immediately saw a series of I envy this young man's notifications. After a while, there were more than 80 messages in the group. Lin Yuan originally wanted to have a taste of Indigo Azure City's melons while he was unconscious. But why did it seem like he was the one who ate the melon instead? Lin Yuan did not know anything about what had happened in the real world after he had been sucked into the evolving dimensional rift. Now, he saw Recluse Study constantly posting melons related to him. Lin Yuan stared blankly like a melon-eating youth. As the person involved, Lin Yuan did not know how true Recluse Studies' melon was. However, this melon was quite sweet. From Recluse Studies' melon, Lin Yuan could feel how nervous his master, the Moon Empress, had been after knowing that he had been sucked into the evolving dimensional rift. It was an emotion that the person involved could not feel, but hearing it from other people's mouths would always make him feel touched. At that moment, Lin Yuan saw Recluse Study send another message in the group chat. Recluse Study, I heard from my uncle that this matter seems to involve Indigo Azure City's Zheng family. Recluse Study, don't spread this matter about the Zheng family because I secretly heard it from my uncle and mother. After sending this message, Recluse Study's concerns did not happen at all. Because Reclusive Study was directly judged by a few big shots in the group as a fake message, they cast him with disdain. In the eyes of the masses, even if the Zheng family was related to the young man that Recluse Study claimed to be the Moon Empress disciple, they would not be able to do anything about it. The Zheng family definitely did not have the qualifications to make the moonlight cover the blazing sun and stand alone in the sky because of the Zheng family. Lin Yuan could not help but be a little curious. Who was this uncle that Recluse Study mentioned? Recluse Study knew a little too much, and when he heard Recluse Study mention the Zheng family, Lin Yuan was stunned. Recluse Study knew a little too much, and when he heard Recluse Study mention the Zheng family, Lin Yuan was sure that Recluse Study's melon was real. The storm between him and the Zheng family was first, and then he had been sucked into the evolving dimensional rift. Nothing had happened for nearly 2 days in between. At that time, he had indeed revealed his identity to the 2 guard envoys with his master's creation master crest with the Moon Empress imprint. However, the 2 guard envoys had already promised him that they would not let this matter spread. As for the Indigo Azure Guard captain, since the 2 guard envoys had come with him, they would naturally remind him. There were only 3 people left who might be Recluse Study's uncle. One was Jiao Hansong. The other was Duan He, who had come with Jiao Hansong to help protect him and help his contracted fae, the cold snowpine, break through to Myth 2 and transform into a human. There was also Nightmare 6, who had suddenly appeared to support Jiao Hansong. However, Jiao Hansong and Nightmare 6 were already dead, and the dead would not speak. In that case, only Duan He would be able to completely understand all of this. In any case, such news could not have been spread by the Zheng family itself. Lin Yuan did not deny the possibility of this matter being leaked, but he could tell from the reactions of the others in the group that they did not know about this at all. Moreover, when he had called Liu Jie this morning, Wen Yu had also mentioned the Zheng family's current situation. It was obvious that his master, the Moon Empress, had not done anything to the Zheng family. Lin Yuan suddenly felt that some things could be discovered as long as he thought about it. However, Lin Yuan could not be sure if his guess was completely accurate. If he wanted to verify his guess, he still had to test it out. The first watch, and there was another watch later. End of this chapter. Chapter 546. Just as the group members were denouncing Recluse Study's behavior of adding more melons, Lin Yuan spoke up. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, looking at the time, the group welfare auction will start in 10 minutes. Lin Yuan's appearance helped Recluse Study out of the predicament. Soon, Lin Yuan once again saw the power of the purchase with no loss stores star web fan club card repeater. After looking at the row after row of pigeon group owner has spoken up messages, Lin Yuan felt that it was time for him to take out some compensation. Lin Yuan felt that it was time for him to take out some compensation. The more Lin Yuan compensated, the more he would earn. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, since I was delayed for 2 days due to some matters, the group welfare will compensate you guys by giving you 2 more Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Lin Yuan's compensation immediately received a warm response from the group members. Your little fairy is here with me. The group owner is awesome. Old Black Crow, GU, 2 more Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls after 2 days. The group owner is simply too particular. Amber Button, although the group owner added 2 more, I still can't afford it. I'm watching the big boss trade in the front row. Upon seeing the enthusiastic response from the group members, Lin Yuan felt a little embarrassed. He felt a little embarrassed that he had delayed the group welfare auction because of some matters in the past 2 days. Lin Yuan thought about it and continued to edit another message. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, the 10 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls I took out previously had a purity of around 9.8. This time, I will take back the 10 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls with a purity of around 9.8. Deep Mountain Elder Lin. Instead, I will carefully pick out 12 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls with a purity of 9.9. I will not specify the attributes of these 12 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, the person who wins the auction can choose the attributes of the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls from the 4 elements of water, wind, earth, or fire. After Lin Yuan sent this message, the eyelids of the creation masters in the group twitched violently. The ones who jumped the most were the 2 Class 4 creation masters who joined the purchase with No Lost Stores fan club. Only Class 4 creation masters would know how difficult it was to nurture a Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearl with a purity of 9.9, just as Lin Yuan mentioned the 9.8 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Many people in the group realized that the Heavenly Maiden grade fire elemental pearls that the group leader had taken out earlier were of such high purity. Now, he had changed the 9.8 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls into 9.9 purity ones. Apart from being shocked by Lin Yuan's generosity, many people who had been preparing to auction the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls had no choice but to re-examine their chips. This was because the 9.8 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls and the 9.9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls were sold as high purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. In terms of use, it was not much different from the 9.5 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. However, 9.9 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls were rare treasures when it came to collecting. Class 4 Creation Master Duan Li was also reading the group chat. Master Duan Li had helped Zhu Luo cultivate the Ironbone lizard before, so she knew that it required 5 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls to evolve. It had evolved from an Earth-type Fae into an Earth-Fire dual-type Fae. He had previously seen Zhu Luo in the purchase with No Lost Store and heard from him that the Iron Bone-splitting lizard was fine. Master Duan Li had already raised the importance of the purchase with No Lost Store by a whole new level in her heart. When Lin Yuan decided to auction off the 10 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls as group welfare, Master Duan Li's opinion of the purchase with No Lost Store rose once again. Now, Lin Yuan was offering 9.9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls as group welfare as compensation for postponing the group welfare auction. Master Duan Li suddenly felt that this small star web store had already surpassed many veteran factions in terms of grandeur. It had reached the level of a top-notch faction. In Master Duan Li's eyes, offering 9.9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls for auction was a huge loss. It was a real benefit to the group. As a Class 4 creation master, Master Duan Li rarely spoke in the group, but now, she could not help but ask. Duan Li, admin, water, wind, fire, and earth, can you guarantee a 9.9 purity no matter which element you choose? Master Duan Li's question echoed the question in the hearts of almost all the group members. Lin Yuan looked at Master Duan Li's question and replied seriously. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, since it's a benefit, it has to be treated equally. So, no matter which element you choose, or just one of the 4, I can guarantee a 9.9 purity. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, that way, you guys won't have to go through the trouble of exchanging for elemental pearls that don't match. Seeing Lin Yuan's reply, almost everyone in the group had the same thought. That was why the admin's reply seemed so serious, but no matter how you looked at it, it seemed like he was showing off and showing off. If one could really obtain 9.9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls, only an idiot would choose to trade. When the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls reached 9.9 purity, the surface of the elemental pearls would form a layer of pearls. This layer of pearls had the softness of pearls and the luster of the elemental essence. Apart from the elemental pearls themselves, they were also an extremely rare collectible. Every single Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearl with a 9.9 purity would form a different layer of pearls. It could be said that every single Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearl with a 9 purity was a unique existence in this world. This meant that the exchange of 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls was no longer an equivalent exchange. It was more like an exchange between two collectibles. The Class 4 Creation Master Duan Li took a deep breath. From Lin Yuan's words, she could tell that Lin Yuan had a lot of 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. At the very least, he could take out 12 of each. Originally, Master Duan Li had been more rational about the appearance of Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. But now, after seeing the 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls, Master Duan Li felt that she had to take a gamble. She wanted to see if she could buy these 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Master Duan Li was already hesitating about whether she should take out the treasure that she had been hiding and unwilling to use in exchange. After Lin Yuan announced his newly changed group benefits, he saw everyone's intense reactions, especially when he saw the members of the group called Recluse Study, who looked eager to give it a try. Lin Yuan tagged Recluse Study in the group chat. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, Recluse Study, is your uncle's surname Duan? Lin Yuan's nonsensical words immediately caused the crowd to flood the screen with. However, Recluse Study quickly jumped up and asked in astonishment. Recluse Study, F***CK, Deep Mountain Elder Lin, have you been a charlatan for the past 2 days? Seeing Recluse Study's reaction, Lin Yuan knew that he had guessed correctly. Recluse Study's uncle was indeed Duan He. Lin Yuan watched as Recluse Study frantically tagged him in the group chat and asked how he knew. The corner of Lin Yuan's mouth curled up, but he did not answer Recluse Study's question. This was because Lin Yuan was already scheming against Recluse Study's uncle, Duan He. Second, even more. Seeking monthly votes and recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 547. Lin Yuan remembered that Recluse Study had said in the group chat that he was not a member of a major family clan, and that his uncle, Duan He, was also a freelance spirit chi professional. His identity as a freelance spirit chi professional meant that Duan He had not joined any faction. Duan He had initially wanted to help Jiao Hansong's Fae survive the world cleansing. However, based on the interaction between Duan He and Jiao Hansong, Lin Yuan knew that Duan He did not have any personal relationship with the Zheng family. He had come to the deserted island just to return Jiao Hansong's favor. Lin Yuan's current private faction, Sky City, only had Endless Summer and the Mother of Bloodbath. Although Lin Yuan had not seen Duan He's true strength and had only seen his Diamond X Fantasy V Sword Plume Sea Eagle, Duan He's Sword Plume Sea Eagle, Lin Yuan had not seen it. However, Jiao Hansong could find Duan He to help his myth-breed Fae survive the world cleansing. This meant that Duan He's main Fae was at least at the pinnacle of myth. Lin Yuan secretly thought that if he could rope in Recluse Study's uncle and obtain Duan He's loyalty, that would undoubtedly increase the strength of Sky City's high-end combat power by a lot. While Lin Yuan was thinking about Duan He was also secretly thinking about his own advantages. If he could recruit the Emperor-class expert, Duan He, under his command, what exactly could he bring to Duan He? Recruiting an Emperor-class expert as a subordinate was not something that could be achieved by just casually paying some rare resources. For things like Bronze Epic Phase, Emperor-class experts could easily use their connections and resources to find Class 4 Creation Masters to purchase or customize. With an Emperor-class expert status, very few Class 4 Creation Masters would reject a transaction with an Emperor-class expert. Emperor-class experts could definitely be regarded as core combat power for veteran factions. As long as they were willing to pledge their loyalty, any veteran faction would not be stingy with their resources. Therefore, if Lin Yuan wanted to target Duan He and make him his subordinate, he would need to put in a lot of effort. However, Lin Yuan also had something that other veteran factions and top factions could not offer. That was a Bronze Legend Fae. Of course, Lin Yuan only had the thought of recruiting Duan He at the moment. Duan He was indeed an Emperor-class expert, but Lin Yuan had never only looked at strength when recruiting subordinates. On the basis of strength, Lin Yuan also valued the character of his subordinates. Lin Yuan was not clear about Duan He's character. Lin Yuan was tempted. As for whether he should get in touch with Duan he would need to get when you to check on Duan his relevant deeds and information. In the Radiant Moon Palace's Hidden Moon Pavilion, every expert's information had been analyzed by the Radiant Moon Palace's hidden servants. The personalities and life experiences of these experts had been organized into distinct biographies. As the incident happened, the Radiant Moon Palace's hidden servants would update and record it in the character journal. After the death of every expert who was qualified to be written in the Radiant Moon Palace's annals by the hidden servant, this name was engraved with this expert's entire character's will and would be sealed. His faction, Sky City, had sorted out all the information on the veteran and rising factions in a very short time according to its own situation. In addition to Wen Yu's hard work, a large part of the reason was the ready-made information in the Radiant Moon Palace's Hidden Moon Pavilion. The Radiant Moon Palace's Hidden Moon Pavilion was an intelligence organization that belonged to the Moon Empress and was usually controlled by Mystic Moon. To outsiders, the Leaning Moon Mountain was a forbidden place that could not be set foot in, let alone the Hidden Moon Pavilion, which was the Radiant Moon Palace's eyes. However, to Lin Yuan, entering the Hidden Moon Pavilion was as simple as entering the pavilion that he lived in on the Leaning Moon Mountain. Lin Yuan's hand gently pinched his chin as he pondered. In order to attract an Emperor-class expert to join a faction, apart from providing resources, what could attract the Emperor-class expert's attention was a beautiful future. Lin Yuan had always insisted on relying on his own ability to develop Sky City, but he was not pedantic on some things. The Moon Empress had proposed to Lin Yuan several times that she wanted to pour resources into Sky City, but he had rejected them without hesitation. However, the fact that the Moon Empress was his master was an unchanging fact. Although Lin Yuan did not accept the Moon Empress's pouring of external resources, he did not completely rely on his own strength to collect information and intelligence. Instead, he relied on the Radiant Moon Palace's Hidden Moon Pavilion's information network to establish his private faction, Sky City. In Lin Yuan's opinion, information and intelligence were far more useful than resources. Wen Yu had already sorted out all the resources that Sky City had for the major emerging factions and veteran factions. Next, Lin Yuan needed to start building his own eyes for Sky City. He would not always treat the Hidden Moon Pavilion as Sky City's eyes. If it were other Emperor-class experts, given Lin Yuan's current standards, he might not think of recruiting them. However, Duan he was an exception. This was because Duan he was different from other Emperor-class experts in that Duan he knew Lin Yuan's identity. Lin Yuan knew that he had abundant resources on hand and could completely meet Duan his needs. Exposing his identity to Duan he was equivalent to giving Duan he a beautiful future. Therefore, under the premise that Lin Yuan did not want to expose his identity to the outside world, recruiting the Emperor-class expert, Duan he, was Lin Yuan's best choice. During the few minutes that Lin Yuan pondered, everyone had already forgotten that he had guessed Recluse Study's uncle's surname like a charlatan. Everyone's mind was already on the 12 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls with 9 purity. However, Recluse Study still felt that it was a little unbelievable. Since he did not get an answer from Lin Yuan, Recluse Study took it to heart. There were so many big shots in the group, but the group owner did not seem to know anyone. Recluse Study did not think that the group owner would know him. However, at the thought of his uncle's formidable strength, Recluse Study suddenly came to a realization. The group owner wouldn't know my uncle, right? Recluse Study suddenly remembered that this purchase with no Lost Star web store seemed to be recommended to him by his uncle, knowing that he wanted to buy the flower brocade pearls. However, after Recluse Study exchanged for the flower brocade pearls through blind trading and joined the fan group. However, he did not find his uncle in the fan group. At that moment, Recluse Study realized that his uncle was online on Star Web. Since he could not get an answer from Lin Yuan, Recluse Study thought that he would get an answer from his uncle. Thus, he decided to go into seclusion and sent a message over. First, later. End of this chapter. Chapter 548. Recluse Study. Uncle, do you still remember the Star Web boutique store that you recommended me to buy flower brocade pearls from? Duan he had yet to leave Indigo Azure City. Instead, He was helping the two guard envoys kill some high-level water world dimensional lifeforms while the dimensional rift was active. At the same time, he also entered the various dimensional rifts to scavenge source-type items to earn resources. Even if Duan He was an Emperor Realm expert with extraordinary strength, he would not be able to defeat Duan He. However, during the active phase of the dimensional rifts could appear everywhere. Duan He still felt abnormally tired from having to frequently traverse between dimensional rifts to kill high-grade dimensional lifeforms. Part of the reason why Duan He was working so hard was because this dimensional rift was active, and the degree of spatial fluctuations was far greater than the previous ones. Even though the two guard envoys had brought close to 1,000 spirit guards to coordinate with the Indigo Azure guards in Indigo Azure City, they were still lacking in manpower. Secondly, it was also because Duan He was really short on resources during this period of time. This shortage of resources had already brought a lot of pressure to Duan He. Duan He was probably the only person who hated Jiao Hansong the most right now. During the process of Jiao Hansong's main Fae, the Cold Snow Pine, evolving to Myth 2, he had borrowed a few expensive spiritual ingredients from Duan He. At that time, Jiao Hansong had given Duan He a relatively good return price and had shamelessly told Duan He many times. Only then was Duan He willing to lend it to Jiao Hansong. But Duan He had never imagined that Jiao Hansong, this old bag of bones, would actually die. Duan He really didn't know who to look for to collect the debt. He couldn't possibly go to the Zheng family to collect it, right? Not to mention whether or not the Zheng clan would repay the debt. The Zheng clan had lost 2 emperor-level experts. If he went to find the Zheng family at this time, he would probably become a ready-made punching bag for the Zheng family. At that time, not only would he not be able to retrieve the precious Fae that he had lent out, but he would also have to suffer the dust. Duan He's talent was quite strong. Apart from the Diamond X Fantasy V-Sword Plume Sea Eagle, there were 2 other Faes. Both of Duan He's Faes were main Faes and had reached the pinnacle of suzerain Myth I. He was just 1 step away from reaching Myth 2. Duan He did not have the slightest clue about the money needed to upgrade his 2 main Faes from suzerain Myth I to Myth 2. Coincidentally, a few days ago, Duan He had comprehended another willpower rune under the moonlight. Duan He's spiritual energy could still be used to contract Faes. Comprehending 1 more willpower rune was the same as needing to contract a new high-quality bronze Fae. Furthermore, he would nurture this new high-quality bronze Fae. This was supposed to be a joyous occasion. This was what Duan He had been looking forward to for the past few years. 1 more Fae would enrich Duan He's current combat system. It allowed Duan He to have more possibilities. However, this joyous occasion came at the juncture where his 2 main Faes were about to advance to Myth 2, so it seemed a little awkward. The fulfillment of this happy event that he had been looking forward to a few years ago did not make Duan He feel happy. Instead, he felt as if the milk had returned after the baby had died. Duan He, who wasn't in a good mood, looked at his nephew, who had become a creation master at a young age but had been obsessed with star web battles and had yet to become a Class 2 creation master. He felt that he could not vent his anger. In Duan He's opinion, what was the use of combat class spirit chi professionals risking their lives every day? No matter how strong they weren't they still working for those creation masters? In any case, this was how Duan He had been living for so many years. Basically, most of the resources earned from risking their lives were given to the creation masters when nurturing Faes. Cut off the river. What time is it now? You're still going on the star web. You don't need to go to the star web to train your creation master abilities. If you have nothing to do, just go to the breeding room. Our whole family will be free of worries. Cut off the river. Hurry up and increase your creation master strength. Once you become a Class 2 creation master, I will use my connections to find a Class 4 creation master for you to be your master. Recluse Study had been a little hesitant when he had sent a private message to Duan He. Now that he had sent a private message to Recluse Study, he realized that his prediction was right. As expected, he had been lectured by his uncle again. His uncle was big and burly like a boar. However, if he really lectured him, even his father, who was teaching at an advanced Spirit Chi vocational college, could not compare. However, when it came to his strength as a creation master, Recluse Study had a lot to say. Recluse study. Uncle, my creation master strength has been greatly improved. Duan he was originally going to continue lecturing, but he suddenly saw the good news from his nephew. Duan he felt that even if he had a tiring day, he was not that tired now. Immediately after, Recluse study's reply made Duan his vision turn black. Recluse study. Uncle, with the flower brocade pearls you gave me previously and the new pot I bought with my lucky money, I am now stronger than some Class 2 creation master. Recluse study. Of course, I am talking about the success rate of concocting the spirit fluid. Duan he was currently contacting a few sellers for the prices of the rare spiritual ingredients he needed while waiting for his nephew's good news. However, when he saw his nephew's message, Duan he felt as though he had shut himself up. His nephew was really a little genius. Was there such a comparison? The spirit fluid concocted by a Class 1 creation master did not require many spiritual ingredients. 2 pots of flower brocade pearls were given to a Class 1 creation master. As long as one's basic skills were solid enough, the success rate of concocting the spirit fluid would be at least 30%. If one really wanted to compare the success rate would be comparable to some low-level Class 3 creation masters. But as a Class 1 creation master, why don't you compete with Class 2 creation masters in healing phase damaged roots? After a long time, Duan he finally recovered from his recluse. Duan he, who had recovered from his recluse, angrily replied, "Broken River, you are now 19 years old. If you do not become a Class 2 creation master by the age of 20, I will not be able to find a good master for you." Recluse study felt a little wronged. His uncle was good at everything but worried for nothing. Was it difficult to find a master? He had nothing to do in the group chat and had picked up a few jokes about Master Duan Li. He had been acting cute all day. Wasn't he accepted as an in-name disciple by Master Duan Li? Recluse study had been lectured by his uncle all day long. Now, he finally found a chance to retaliate. Recluse study. Uncle, I have been accepted as an in-name disciple by Class 4 creation master Duan Li. Recluse study. Master Duan Li said that as long as I can become a Class 2 creation master before the age of 20 and pass her test, she will accept me as a personal disciple. Second update. Please get monthly votes and recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 549. When Duan he saw Recluse study's message, he was immediately stunned. What's going on? Did this kid find himself a master? Duan his first reaction was that his cheap nephew had been deceived. But immediately after, Duan he realized how treacherous his nephew was. Rather than worrying about his nephew being deceived, he might as well worry about others being deceived by his nephew. When had his nephew ever suffered a loss? At the thought of this, Duan he could not help but wonder if this Class 4 creation master had been deceived by his nephew. Apart from a small number of Class 3 creation masters, the rest of the creation masters who had real titles and were called by their titles were all Class 4 creation masters. As long as a Class 4 creation master was willing to accept his nephew as a disciple, it would definitely be a profit. Even if it was just a write-in disciple. A write-in disciple could already receive guidance from a Class 4 creation master. As long as they could receive guidance from a Class 4 creation master and learn knowledge, they would be able to increase their own abilities. Therefore, Duan he did not really care if his nephew was a write-in disciple or a personal disciple. However, Duan he did not know where his nephew had gotten to know a Class 4 creation master. His nephew would climb the Star Tower for 5 hours every day without any hesitation. He was already at the 60th floor now. He could not have met a Class 4 creation master during a Star Tower duel, right? Just thinking about it made Duan he feel that it was nonsense. Even if a Class 4 creation master was not adept at combat, he would not be too weak if he used his phase body to collide. Cut off the river, where did you find a master? Recluse study was regretting sending a private message to his uncle. All the group members that could be online were already online, and the group welfare auction was going to start in 3 minutes. But his uncle was still asking questions. If he kept replying to his uncle's messages, how could he watch the show? Recluse study was preparing to end the battle quickly. Recluse study, group chat. Recluse study's reply stunned Duan he. What group chat allowed me to find a Class 4 creation master as a master? Isn't this the same as a blind man fishing in the sea and finding the Rouge Queen clam? Cut off the river, what group chat? You even found a Class 4 creation master as a master? River break, don't try to fool me, otherwise, I'll tell your mother that you hired someone to do your homework for this holiday. Let's see if your mother will hit you or not. Recluse Study, who saw the news about his uncle, felt like going crazy. What the heck was that? Why did this uncle of hers suddenly want to gouge people's eyeballs out of the blue? If his mother found out that he had found someone to help him with his homework, he would be beaten into a pulp. Recluse Study wanted to argue, but he realized that the group welfare auction would begin in a minute. Cultivating in seclusion was like breaking a jar. Reclusive Study, it's the fan club of the Star Web store where you bought the flower brocade pearls for me. Recluse Study, uncle, it was fine before. In the future, I will train my creation master aptitude in the breeding room, and you have to promise me that you won't tell my mother about this. You cannot go back on your words. Recluse Study, I can't go now. There's an auction for Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in the group. I'm going to watch the show. After reading this message, he felt even more confused. What's going on? After thinking about his nephew's words, he vaguely remembered the Star Web store where he had traded for the flower brocade pearls through the blind trade. He had coincidentally come across the transaction of a batch of flower brocade pearls. He had only spent 10 mid-grade strange flames to exchange for 1 flower brocade pearls. Experts like he did not really care about the flower brocade pearls anymore. However, when he had used 10 mid-grade strange flames to exchange for the flower brocade pearls, he still felt that the Star Web store's owner had a brain. Such an item, which would be instantly sold in the Rare Lifeform Pavilion's auction, had actually been sold in his own Star Web store. But now, after communicating with his nephew, he felt that his worldview as an Emperor-class expert had been refreshed once again. Since when would a Star Web store sell Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that even Emperor-class experts would have to put in some effort to find? He did not usually buy many things on Star Web, so he checked the transaction records. He immediately found the purchase with no loss Star Web store where he had traded for the flower brocade pearls through the blind trade. He had previously blocked all messages apart from private chats. Therefore, after trading for the flower brocade pearls, he did not receive an invitation to join the group chat. However, even if he had received the invitation, he probably would not have joined and would have ignored the notification that he had been dropped into the group chat. Now, he had chosen to join the purchase with no loss stores group chat without hesitation. He didn't want to verify the authenticity of his nephew's words in the closed-door study. Based on his understanding of his nephew, even if his nephew used the flower brocade pearls to cook and angered him to death, he would not lie. The reason he had joined the purchase with no loss stores fan club was that his main phase evolution required a few Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Since his nephew was auctioning them in this group chat, he could save the trouble of trading with the creation master who nurtured the elemental shellfish. He was confident that no one in this group would be able to snatch the pearls from him given his wealth as an Emperor-class expert. Even if he was really poor and lacked resources, he would not be able to snatch the pearls. Lin Yuan was originally prepared to start the group welfare auction at 10 a.m. sharp, but he did not expect a newcomer to join at that time. He knew that his purchase with no loss store did not have any resources and was still on sale. Therefore, this person was likely to have purchased something from the store but did not choose to join the group chat. The group welfare auction was about to start. Since a newcomer had joined the group, it was necessary to welcome him. However, Recluse Study, who had always been at the forefront, was now silent. He felt as though he had shot himself in the foot. Now that his uncle had joined the group, how was he going to lead the group in the future? After he entered the group chat, he did not expect the members to be so enthusiastic in this small fan club. A few dozen of them were almost catching up to the thousands of people in other groups. But immediately after, he saw the new 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that Lin Yuan had put up for the group welfare auction. Apart from being shocked, his breathing immediately became hurried. Baidu read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 550. He simply wanted to curse. Why didn't he join this group earlier? He carefully checked the group welfare again. There were 4 elemental pearls: water, wind, fire, and earth. After confirming that these elemental pearls were 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls, he immediately checked the purchase with no loss store's detailed information. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed that a 1-star store would actually auction 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. When he was still a pinnacle king class expert, he had spent a lot of effort and owed a lot of favors in order to promote his phase to the suzerain grade. He had also spent a lot of resources to invite an advanced class 4 creation master to help him nurture a few 9, 7 and 9, 8 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Although Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls were in circulation in the market, most of them were 9, 5 and 9, 6 purity. It wasn't impossible to encounter 9, 7 and 9, 8 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls, but if it was urgent, he could only find an advanced class 4 creation master to customize them. As for 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls, even a pinnacle class 4 creation master would need to gamble a lot of luck to nurture one. Logically speaking, no one would sell these Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in the market, not to mention auctioning them off as a group benefit for the few people in the group. His current strength was already at the Emperor class, so he wouldn't need to spend as much effort to find an advanced class 4 creation master to nurture 9, 7 and 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls for him. However, if he wanted to find a pinnacle class 4 creation master to nurture 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls with pearls, even if he was an Emperor class expert, he wouldn't have any face if he wanted to interact with a pinnacle class 4 creation master. His strength was only considered average among Emperor class experts, so he didn't really think much of his strength as a pinnacle class 4 creation master. Only those pinnacle Emperor class experts were qualified to be on equal footing with advanced class 4 creation masters. The Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that he needed for his phase evolution weren't as high as the requirement for the suzerain grade. The pure elemental energy contained in the elemental pearls was mainly used to stimulate the transformation of the pure-type phase bloodline. Therefore, high-purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls were only useful for phase with pure attribute bloodlines that were about to metamorphose. His 2 main phase were about to break through to Myth 2 and take human form. During this process, he needed spiritual ingredients that were helpful for the phase evolution and enhancement. The pure elemental energy only played a supporting role. But now, he felt as if he had fallen into a pit, and there was a pile of diamonds waiting for him to find them. Even though he had consumed a lot of resources to evolve his Fae from Myth I to Myth 2, he didn't have enough resources. However, as an Emperor Realm expert, he still had some savings. During this time, he had also obtained many source-type items from the Water World Dimensional Rift in Indigo Azure City. At this time, he made up his mind to bid for the 12 female elemental pearls with a purity of 9. Since he had made up his mind to auction the group welfare, he decided to ask about the rules of the auction. After all, he had just joined the group and wasn't very clear about the rules of the group welfare auction. He felt that he was at a disadvantage. If these 10 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls with a purity of 9, he would need to prepare some specific resources as bargaining chips to conduct the transaction. He was really going to curse. He remembered that when this group's owner had used the blind trade to exchange for the flower brocade pearls, he had stipulated the bargaining chips for the blind trade. Furthermore, the bargaining chip was a rare mid-grade strange flame. He was about to ask, but before he sent the message, he habitually glanced at the group chat before sending the message. He was petrified by this one glance. At that moment, he saw someone at his nephew, Recluse Study, and the question made he have the urge to drag Recluse Study in front of him and beat him up. Someone in the group chat asked, "Stream in the cloud, fortunately, I made it in time. If I couldn't, my guarantee would have been in vain. Stream in the cloud, wow." Recluse Study, I scrolled through the group chat. The bright moon hanging over the melon you mentioned is related to the Zheng family. Why didn't I hear anything from the Zheng family? When Duan he saw this message, he felt that his nephew was simply a maniac who conned his uncle. Duan he had repeatedly emphasized not to go out at home, but this nephew had not only overheard it, but he had also taken it as a melon and posted it in the group chat. If such news were to spread to the ears of the person in question, he would not be able to bear the responsibility even as an emperor-class expert. When Duan he had first left the deserted island, he hadn't known Lin Yuan's identity. When he had come to the deserted island for the second time, he had looked in the direction of the dimensional rift and could only see the moonlight that hadn't dispersed. Duan he simply couldn't see through the moonlight barrier. Duan he felt that the few figures standing in the rich moonlight were getting more and more familiar. Duan he only dared to raise his head after the Moon Empress had walked out of the moonlight barrier and carried a body that was enveloped by the moonlight. However, when Duan he looked up, he saw the two suzerain myth breed phase that had killed Zhao Hansong. When he looked up, he saw the two suzerain myth breed phase that had killed Zhao Hansong. Duan he suddenly came to a realization. It turned out that the strange masked youth that had ordered people to kill Zhao Hansong on the deserted island was the Moon Empress disciple. Duan he had also guessed Lin Yuan's identity when he had heard Lin Yuan mention the Sky City. Duan he was certain that he had never heard of the Sky City's faction. Now that he thought about it, the Sky City wasn't some rumored hidden faction. It should be a faction that the masked youth had just created. Duan he knew this secret because he had been on the deserted island as a bystander and had witnessed everything that had happened. However, this matter had been released as a melon by his nephew. As long as the person involved knew about the Song of Wind and was not a fool, he would probably be able to easily lock onto the scope of the information leak. It would probably be very easy to lock onto the scope of the leak, and after some investigation, they would be able to determine who had leaked the secret. Baidu read the latest chapter of the Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 551. Before Recluse study, he had been waiting for others to pick up on his gossip so that he could tell them everything he had secretly heard. But now that his uncle had entered the group, not only did Recluse study not dare to eat happily, but he also felt that he had shut himself off. Fortunately, Yunxi did not dwell on this issue and had already started to Lin Yuan. Stream in the cloud, Deep Mountain Elder Lin, since the group welfare is so good this time, why don't we not auction in the group chat? Stream in the cloud, we can go to the purchase with no loss store and hold an auction for the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Lin Yuan was about to stop the group messages that kept flooding the screen and hold the auction for the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. However, after seeing Stream in the Cloud's words, Lin Yuan only felt a few black lines appear on his head. In the group welfare auction, the 12 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls would be auctioned as a package. Therefore, it could only be considered as an auction for one item. The purchase with no loss store would not have enough trouble auctioning off a single item. Moreover, as a one-star store, Lin Yuan had long since had enough store points, but he had never upgraded it. If everyone went to the purchase with no loss store, wouldn't it become a student class meeting with such a large area and so many people? Lin Yuan was preparing to auction in the group chat. He found that almost all the members in the group agreed with Stream in the Cloud, who was also the braised egghead. Among them, the first to enter the purchase with no loss store were the mother-daughter duo, the violent-tempered woman, and Ju Jusin. I hope I can treat this group welfare auction as a meet-up event for the purchase with no loss store's fan club members. Lin Yuan did not care, as he had nothing urgent to do in a while. Since the group members had been chatting in the group for so long and were so eager to use this opportunity to get to know each other, Lin Yuan was naturally willing to fulfill and create this opportunity. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, then come to the purchase with no loss store. I'll open the store's access control for you. After sending the message, Lin Yuan was in a hurry to buy 100 ordinary wooden chairs from a Star Web furniture store not far from his purchase with no loss store. These ordinary chairs cost $200 Federation each and could only be used on Star Web. They were considered the most ordinary furniture on Star Web. When Lin Yuan had just opened the purchase with no loss store, he had come to this furniture store to look at the furniture. However, at that time, Lin Yuan wished that he could spend a single cent as if it were $100. He simply couldn't bear to buy such useless furniture. The reason why Lin Yuan had bought so many useless solid wood chairs at once was that he had to use them. Since there was nothing in the purchase with no loss store, the group members had come to the store to participate in the group welfare auction. They could not possibly let all of them stand, right? When Lin Yuan arrived at the Star Web store after buying the chair, there were already 20 to 30 group members waiting inside. Lin Yuan quickly started to set up the solid wood chair that he had just bought. Upon seeing this, Listen walked to Lin Yuan's side. Since Lin Yuan was wearing a mask engraved with Sky Majestic City's strange patterns, Listen could not see his face clearly. However, just by looking at Lin Yuan's spirited eyes, Listen knew that he was in good spirits. While Listen helped Lin Yuan set up the chair, Ju Jusin and the violent-tempered woman also walked over. He helped Lin Yuan and Listen arrange the chairs neatly in the purchase with no loss store. The others looked at Lin Yuan, who was wearing a strange mask, and could not help but feel that he was a weirdo. In particular, the new group members simply could not understand how a person could casually take out 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. He actually used the tables that were given for free when the Starweb opened the store, as well as the solid wood chairs that could be bought on the Starweb for only $200 Federation. Could this be the rumored explanation for the true rich people usually not showing off? However, no matter how one looked at it, the purchase with no loss store's shabby layout did not seem to be not showing off. Instead, it was more like deliberately pretending to be poor. Recluse Study did not directly enter the purchase with no loss store. Instead, he obediently lowered his head at the entrance of the Star Web store, waiting for Du and He, who had yet to arrive. At this moment, Reclusive Study heard a familiar angry bellow beside his ear. Li Tiaro, you eavesdropped on me and even spread my word. Are you waiting for me to inform your mother to beat you up? Recluse Study pursed her lips. Uncle, I must officially inform you that although you are my uncle, there is no difference between you and my father. If you die, I will have to send you off. But I have a father. My father's name is Li Pengao. At first, Du he was still a little shocked and angry. However, after hearing his nephew Li Tiaro's improper words, Du he felt so angry that he almost fainted. Even though Du he was an emperor-level expert, every time he came into contact with Li Tiaro, Du he felt like he was losing control of his anger. Du he said viciously, "Let's go in and participate in the auction first. I must win these 12 Heavenly Maiden ranked elemental pearls. I'll make sure my sister doesn't deal with you when we get home." Du he was always angry with Li Tiaro. However, no matter how angry he was, Du he could not bear to slap Li Tiaro. However, Du he had a way to deal with Li Tiaro. As long as he went home and told his sister about Li Tiaro's problem, he would definitely be beaten up within half an hour. He might even send Li to a mixed doubles. Li Tiaro curled his lips. He knew that he wouldn't have a good time when he returned home. In any case, Li Tiaro was used to such situations. Li Tiaro quickly said, "Uncle, I'll bid for you when you auction the group welfare later. Anyway, there's no difference between me bidding for it and you bidding for it." As Li Tiaro and Du he spoke, they had already entered the purchase with no loss store. However, Li Tiaro realized that after he spoke, his uncle did not respond for a long time. However, Li Tiaro realized that after he spoke, his uncle did not respond for a long time. Li Tiaro could not help but scratch his head. That shouldn't be the case. Even if his uncle was angry, he shouldn't have rejected such a request. Li Tiaro reached out and pulled Du in his sleeve. He realized that his uncle still did not respond. Li Tiaro raised his head in confusion, only to discover that his uncle was staring straight ahead. Li Tiaro followed Du in his gaze and realized that Du he was looking at a young man wearing a strange mask with an indescribable expression. Baiduan read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 552. Li Xiaotiao had not been in the group for long and had not seen Lin Yuan before. This was also the first time he had seen Lin Yuan. However, due to the fact that Lin Yuan had been surrounded by many members in the purchase with no loss store, the image of Lin Yuan wearing a strange mask had also spread among the fans. Li Xiaotiao looked suspiciously at Du and He, who was staring at the group moderator, and suddenly had a strange thought. His uncle was so powerful and was only middle-aged. Logically speaking, his son should be able to do nothing at this age. However, his uncle, Duan He, had never found an aunt for him. Could it be? Li Xiaotiao's brain worked quickly, and the alarm in his heart rang loudly. It seemed like he had to tell his mother about his conjecture and discovery after being beaten up for half an hour by her to vent his anger. Otherwise, if he suddenly had a little uncle, even if he could accept it, his mother would not be able to accept it. Duan He did not know what his nephew, Li Xiaotiao, was thinking. But even if he knew, Duan He would not be in the mood to kick Li Xiaotiao. Duan He realized that the young man wearing a strange mask was wearing clothes that were completely different from what he had worn outside Indigo Azure City. However, the special aura on his body was still fresh in Duan He's memory. Moreover, Duan He had paid special attention to the strange mask on Lin Yuan's face. This mask was very special, and it had the majestic Sky City's pattern on it. Duan He was sure that he would not remember this mask wrongly. If it was just a mask, Duan He would not be able to confirm Lin Yuan's identity. However, Listen, who was next to Lin Yuan, was not wearing a mask, and Duan He had clearly seen Listen's face. After seeing Listen, Duan He immediately confirmed that the masked young man in front of him was the one he had met outside Indigo Azure City. At the same time, Duan He confirmed that the purchase with no lost store's owner was the Moon Empress disciple. Duan He felt his scalp go numb when he suddenly knew the identity of the purchase with no lost store's owner. Duan He looked around at the others who were already seated in the store and thought to himself. Apart from the young man named Listen, who followed the Moon Empress disciple, only he knew the true identity of the purchase with no lost store's owner. He was afraid that others would find out that the purchase with no lost store's owner was the Moon Empress disciple. They would not dare to sit so casually on the stool that the Moon Empress disciple had just arranged. After confirming the identity of the purchase with no lost store's owner, Duan He finally knew why there were 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in the group welfare. Only the Moon Empress disciple could easily produce such treasures that even pinnacle class 4 creation masters had to rely on luck to nurture. Then Duan He realized that if the Moon Empress disciple was the purchase with no lost store's owner, his nephew would be the owner's owner. Wasn't this the same as feeding the melon directly to the person involved, causing him to be exposed in an instant? Lin Yuan would be the owner being pulled and the owner would be pulled. Loss. He immediately. Xiaotiao eat. Looking at his uncle's ferocious eyes, Li Xiaotiao was so scared that he shrunk his neck and didn't mention that he wanted to bid for Duan He in the auction. Li Xiaotiao looked at his uncle's fierce eyes and shrank back in fear. He did not mention anything about helping Duan He bid during the auction. He looked around and saw that there was still an empty seat next to his master, Master Duan Li, so he quickly ran over. When Duan He looked up at the masked young man again, he suddenly realized that the masked young man was also looking in his direction. Duan He's heart trembled as he looked at Lin Yuan's eyes through his mask. He realized that he was actually looking straight into those eyes. Immediately after, Duan He noticed the corner of the young man's mouth curling up under the strange mask that covered half of his face. A faint smile appeared on his face. Duan He hurriedly gave Lin Yuan an awkward smile and picked a seat in the back row to sit down. Lin Yuan was a little surprised. He had been planning to get in touch with Duan He through seclusion. However, he did not expect Duan He to be a member of his purchase with no lost stores fan club. It would be much easier for him to get in touch with Duan He in the future. Lin Yuan looked at the awkward smile on Duan He's face and was even more sure that Duan He knew his identity. However, it was not a good time for Lin Yuan to get in touch with Duan He. He had to wait until the end of the group welfare auction. Seeing that almost everyone was seated, Lin Yuan said in a clear voice, "The group welfare auction is going to be held in the group. I originally planned to hold the group welfare auction in the group, just like the flower brocade pearls auction. Since everyone requested to come to the Star Web store for the group welfare auction, I might as well take this opportunity to let you have a look at this batch of elemental pearls before the auction." As Lin Yuan spoke, Listen walked to Lin Yuan's side with a tray. Lin Yuan waved his hand, and the 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls of water, air, fire, and earth appeared on the tray. There were 12 pearls of each element, for a total of 48 pearls. When these nine purity heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls appeared, each pearl was dyed with pure elemental energy and bloomed with unique colors. This caused the tray in Lysant's hand to be shrouded in a layer of rich colors. At that moment, a coquettish voice echoed impatiently. I want to know if I can choose the pearl essence on the 12 heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls besides choosing their attributes. As the coquettish woman spoke, she looked at the 48 elemental pearls on Lysant's tray and took 2 breaths of cold air. It was originally just a woman's subconscious voice, but when this voice reached the ears of the surrounding men, they felt that their bodies were somewhat out of control. It was simply too coquettish. Not only did the men feel that their bodies were out of control, but even the braised egghead, Ju Jusin, and the violent-tempered woman felt that their bodies were out of control. They really wanted to use their iron fists of justice to beat this coquettish voice back into this woman's stomach. When Lin Yuan heard this voice, he did not have any other thoughts. He just suddenly remembered that Genius was now 2.5 years old. As housekeeping beasts, 100 questions beasts had to be sterilized after the age of 3. If they were not sterilized, they would continuously meow day and night every spring. The first time was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 553. Most fays would have a sudden change after reaching puberty, but most of them could control their emotions and behavior. They would not scream or be unable to control their behavior. The main reason why the 100 questions beast had such a problem was that as a housekeeping beast, it was not even considered a fae. It could only be considered a domesticated wild beast. As a wild beast, the 100 questions beast might have high intelligence, but it still lacked the instinct to control itself. Genius was now a 1,000 questions beast, and its strength had also reached bronze legend. Genius should be able to control its beast instincts after becoming a 1,000 questions beast. No matter what, Lin Yuan did not want Genius to become a lonely warrior. No matter how miserable it was, it had to be a Santa Claus. After hearing the woman's question, Lin Yuan calmly replied, "There are 12 of each attribute among these 48 elemental pearls. Among these 48 elemental pearls, there are 12 pearls of each attribute. The pearls are different for every 9 purity heavenly maiden grade elemental pearl. Everyone's favorite type of pearls is different. The person who wins the auction can only choose 12 out of these 48 heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls." Lin Yuan's words carried a kind of heroism. Freely choosing 12 out of the 48 heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls was equivalent to giving the person who won the group welfare the right to choose. The right to choose could be based on the person's preference, maximizing the value of the group welfare. This caused the person who was originally preparing to auction these 12 heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls to grit his teeth and increase the chips in his hand. Lin Yuan raised his brows when he saw everyone's enthusiastic reaction. After Lin Yuan had evolved the 4 elemental shellfish to bronze legend, it was very difficult for him to make it produce heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls with a purity below 9. He could only occasionally produce a few heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls with a purity of around 9. Therefore, Lin Yuan did not feel that the pearls on these elemental pearls were rare or special. The pearls on the elemental pearls might be beautiful, but in Lin Yuan's eyes, they were more comfortable than hoarding some source-type items and all kinds of rare spiritual ingredients. Lin Yuan already felt that he was becoming more and more like a hoarding rat. Anyway, hoarding is the right thing to do. The woman with the coquettish voice sat at the front, and Listen held the plate in his hand and was about to show it to every group member who was participating in the auction. Hence, the woman with the coquettish voice was the first to examine the 48 heavenly maiden level elemental pearls on the plate. The coquettish woman seemed to have seen the treasure of her dreams, and she could not help but cry out in surprise. "Oh my God! All of these heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls have the best pearls," the dreamy cloud swarm planned. As she spoke, the woman with the coquettish voice hurriedly grabbed a handful of heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls and carefully checked them. Finally, he sighed to himself. "If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, and if I hadn't investigated it as an expert, I would have been able to confirm that these dreamy cloud lake beads are real. When I saw so many heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls of the dreamy cloud lake, I thought they were mass-produced fakes. The woman's words immediately made all the bigwigs, including Du and He, who were waiting to check the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls in the listening disc seethe with excitement. It's actually the cloudy dreamy lake's pearl. I'm determined to win this group welfare auction. Sigh. If it's the dreamy cloud lake beads, then I can't bear to use the 12 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls in this group welfare auction. I can only treat them as collectibles. It's said that the dreamy cloud lake beads will have different patterns and luster depending on the wearer. I wonder if it's true. Anyway, I'm just here to watch the show. I can't afford to bid for it this time. No, I can't afford to bid for it in the first place. Previously, Lin Yuan only knew that the surface of the elemental pearls would form a bead when they reached a purity of 9. However, Lin Yuan knew relatively little about the pearl essence, which only had an appearance and no special effects. Although Lin Yuan did not know much about the types of 9 purity Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. However, this plate of Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls that everyone called the Dreamy Cloud Lake beads were produced by the 4 different types of elemental shellfish in his spirit lock spatial zone. It could be said that 95% of the 9 purity Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls produced in the spirit lock spatial zone were of the Dreamy Cloud Lake type. As for the remaining 5%, even a straight man like Lin Yuan felt that it was too beautiful and didn't take it out. However, just from the reactions of the group members, the fact that the pearl was a Heavenly Maiden-level elemental pearl from the Dreamy Cloud Lake was already very extraordinary. He understood that he had underestimated the Bronze Legend elemental shellfish in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Or rather, he had underestimated the massive and pure Spirit Chi in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. However, this was excellent news for Lin Yuan. Since the pearls on the surface of the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls could affect their value, that was tantamount to raising the resources that he could produce limitlessly. This allowed the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls to have more purchasing power. Listen had already carefully checked a plate of elemental pearls for everyone participating in the auction. After checking it out, everyone's breathing became rapid. His eyes were fixed on the plate in Listen's hand that contained the Heaven Maiden-grade elemental pearls. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan coughed lightly and said, "That's right. Since everyone has checked these elemental pearls, you can ask me directly if you have any questions. If there are no questions, then the auction for the group welfare will begin." Logically speaking, everyone should have a lot of questions when it came to auctioning expensive things like the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. However, Lin Yuan's method made these bigwigs sitting below have nothing to ask about auctioning expensive things like the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. Everyone had already carefully checked the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls that were going to be auctioned next. They already had an idea of the quality of the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. Even though these 9 purity Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls were all from the Dreamy Cloud Lake, they were all grown in the bodies of organisms like the elemental shellfish. Therefore, each pearl had a certain difference. However, after looking at the 48 elemental pearls, those who were determined to bid for them had probably already decided which 12 Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls they would choose. Now, all the bigwigs who were preparing to participate in the auction had already prepared their resources and were ready to go. Second, more. Seeking monthly votes and recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 554. When Lin Yuan saw that no one had any questions to ask, he spoke. Since it's a group welfare auction, there's no need to have so many rules. Everyone can bid for half an hour. The highest bidder will be able to take away the 12 9 purity Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls. Of course, since the group welfare auction is for Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls, ordinary rare resources will not be allowed to participate in the bidding like last time. Lin Yuan had just finished speaking, and before anyone could ask how to differentiate between ordinary rare resources and rare resources, Lin Yuan said, "Of course, since the group welfare auction is for Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls." Everyone heard Lin Yuan speak again. The definition of rare and precious resources in this group welfare auction is relatively loose. As long as it can be sent to the Star Web Rare Lifeform Pavilion's quarterly auction, it will be counted. After Lin Yuan finished speaking, the bigwigs sitting below who were preparing to auction the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls were all silent. However, some of the bigwigs revealed obvious joy between their brows. Some of the bigwigs who originally had a well-thought-out expression suddenly frowned. Duan he was one of the bigwigs who were frowning. When preparing to participate in the group welfare auction of Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls, Duan he knew that there must be a limit to the bidding price of the elemental pearls. Otherwise, if you bid a gold fei, I will bid 150 silver feis or even 3,000 bronze feis to compete with you. No matter how one compared, the actual price of 3,000 bronze feis would be higher. However, as long as one was a normal person, one would choose only one gold fei rather than 3,000 bronze feis. However, Duan he did not expect Lin Yuan to set the bottom line for the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls so low. The Star Web Rare Lifeform Pavilion had auctions every week. However, the quarterly auction had very strict requirements for the auction items. Even some rare gold metals were no longer accepted in the Star Web Rare Lifeform Pavilion's quarterly auction. Only when spiritual materials entered the platinum grade would the Star Web Rare Lifeform Pavilion's quarterly auction consider income. Duan he felt that the 9 Purity Cloud Dream Lake Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls should at least be exchanged with foundational resources. For example, source-type items. As an Emperor-class expert, Duan he naturally would not hoard so many ordinary rare materials. All the ordinary rare materials that Duan he had obtained had long been exchanged for source-type items. But now, Duan he wanted to use source-type items as a bargaining chip to compete fairly with resources that were obviously inferior to source-type items. This made Duan he feel that he had suffered a great loss. However, with those dreamy Cloud Lake female elemental pearls, Duan he had to go up no matter what. Seeing that the group members still had no questions to ask, Lin Yuan glanced at Listen and sat on a chair behind him. Listen immediately understood and began to host the group welfare auction. As Lin Yuan's representative in the group, Listen was now helping him host the group welfare auction. The group members naturally would not be surprised. Listen said, "Let's make it more lively and use the method of bidding. Whoever wants to bid can just stand up and shout out their chips." Listen narrowed his fox-like eyes and said seriously. As soon as Listen finished speaking, Duan he gave him a thumbs up in his heart. The bidding method undoubtedly prevented the participants from taking out relatively inferior materials for the auction. If they took out relatively inferior materials to bid, they would soon be pointed out by the other group members participating in the auction. Every group member participating in the auction was a competitor. When auctioning things like the Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls, no one would spoil the other. If they took out materials that did not meet the requirements, not only would the bidding be ineffective, but they would also lose face in the group. At the same time, bidding could very well liven up the atmosphere. This kind of atmosphere was not for liveliness, but it was easy to let the people participating in the auction get to their heads. At that moment, Listen was hosting the auction in front, and people had already started to bid. Duan he had guessed part of Listen's thoughts correctly, but he had not guessed Listen's main purpose. After Listen helped Lin Yuan manage the purchase with No Loss Stores fan club, he could already treat the store's fan club as a kind of his own resource. Listen could now be familiar with every group member in the group. However, during daily communication, Listen could not know the wealth of each group member through the communication in the group. Through the bidding method of the group welfare this time, Listen could rank the wealth and energy of the group bigwigs in his mind. It was also convenient for Listen to use the network resources in the purchase with No Loss Stores fan club when he developed the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce. Lin Yuan sat at the back and listened to the bids. He found that the spiritual ingredients that he had been unable to obtain before were all being bid by the bigwigs in the group. However, these spiritual materials that had been quoted were quickly suppressed by other bids. This made Lin Yuan involuntarily swallow his saliva. If these rare and precious spiritual ingredients that he could not usually obtain were in his hands, how much effort would he save? In fact, in this group welfare auction, it was already a loss when Lin Yuan took out the 9 Purity Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls with the Cloud Dream Lake's pearl charm. However, in Lin Yuan's heart, This group welfare auction was not a loss-making transaction. Lin Yuan was now using the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that were constantly produced in the Spirit Lock spatial zone to exchange for a large number of various kinds of precious materials in one go. This undoubtedly saved Lin Yuan a lot of time and energy to search for rare and precious materials. When the floating island whale hatched, Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls wouldn't be enough to build a sky city on its back. Instead, it required all kinds of rare and precious resources. If he started to accumulate rare resources now, it would also prevent him from searching for resources in the future. Because they couldn't find a certain rare resource, they were in a terrible predicament. The auction was still going on, and the atmosphere had become more and more intense. 20 minutes later, Lin Yuan was a little surprised by the price. The Class 4 Creation Master, Master Duan Li, stood up and spoke to the flirtatious woman with a flushed face. I have 8 source-type items, 250 catties of Platinum 1000 Opportunity Bismuth crystals, 1 Platinum Fortune Sea Willow, and 45 Diamond Shining Snake Scales from the Diamond Flashing Winged Serpent. Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 555. It could be said that Master Duan Li's offer had already reached Lin Yuan's expectations. Lin Yuan was a little surprised that the price had already reached his expectations with only 10 minutes left. Lin Yuan was even more surprised by what Master Duan Li had offered. Lin Yuan was sure that he did not know Master Duan Li and had never interacted with her before. Lin Yuan suspected that Master Duan Li's offer was to tempt him. The Platinum 1000 Opportunities Bismuth crystal was a kind of metal spiritual ingredient that Lin Yuan wanted to give the Source Sand's exclusive skill, Metal Consume Manifestation, when it became a platinum fantasy breed. The Diamond Flashing Winged Snake Scale was also a rare spiritual ingredient that could be used to nurture the blue flash purple butterfly. Lin Yuan had been searching for the Diamond Flashing Winged Snake Scale for 2 weeks, but to no avail. Now, the items that Lin Yuan needed were being offered by Master Duan Li one after another. As for the Platinum Fortune Sea Willow, Lin Yuan was not interested in a full-grown fae like that. As a fae that lived underwater and used control and strangulation as its attacking methods, Hu Quan coveted the Fortune Sea Willow's body more than its actual combat significance. Perhaps he had been working hard in the mansion. Master Duan Li had just sat down when the woman with the coquettish voice stood up gracefully and looked at Master Duan Li with disdain. Although the woman's voice was still coquettish, her words were filled with the fighting spirit of a venomous spider for the sake of her beauty. Let me tell you, old thing, I, Wang Fuxiang, am not afraid of anyone when it comes to money. This concubine cursed 32 husbands, 16 boyfriends, 27 male best friends, and 81 dubious partners to death. Even if you are a Class 4 Creation Master, this concubine's wealth isn't something you can imagine. Even if you are an old man, I will not be modest. When the woman said his name, Lin Yuan almost could not help but laugh out loud. Wang Fuxiang, what a strange name. Lin Yuan thought of all the men who had been cursed to death by this woman and felt that if there was really any horror in this world, this woman must be horror itself. Lin Yuan subconsciously checked the woman's name in the group and could not help but raise his eyebrows. Wang Fuxiang's name was, Hibiscus bears the light of spring, Xiangshui embraces the moths of summer. What a beautiful name. While speaking, the woman with the coquettish voice had already turned her head to Lin Yuan flirtatiously. I can take out 20 source-type items to exchange for the 12 beautiful little pearls in the group leader's hand. When these 12 beautiful little pearls are strung together and worn on this concubine's neck, the colorful dreamy cloud swarm planned on the pearls will transform into this concubine's unique pattern. Only then will it complement this concubine's beauty. As the woman spoke, she gently stroked her fair neck as if she was intoxicated by her own beauty. However, his words caused everyone's eyelids to twitch wildly. Such a top-grade Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearl was actually used as an accessory to enhance one's beauty. This kind of behavior sounded like a waste of a heavenly treasure, but if one thought about it carefully, this was indeed the case. The reason why a 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearl was more valuable than a 9.8 purity elemental pearl was because it was a pure pearl. Apart from the extra point of purity, what gave the 9 9. Purity of the elemental pearls. More value was the unique luster of each elemental pearl. But even if they could understand, they were still shocked by the woman's extravagance. Many of her male compatriots cursed in their hearts, "I don't care how many husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, or lovers you have. If you squander their inheritance like this, will their coffins really be able to hold it down?" Master Duan Li's face turned even redder when she heard the woman's words. The group owner has already lowered the threshold for rare and precious resources. Even if you take out 20 source-type items that are rarer than what I'm offering, I'll still have to pay. But in terms of overall value, the price is still the same. Therefore, the price you quoted is not valid. After hearing Master Duan Li's words, the woman with the coquettish voice tucked her hair behind her ear. She tilted her body sideways and raised her head, saying in a sweet voice, "Among the 20 source-type items I mentioned, there is an elemental source-type item. Moreover, the contract conditions for this elemental source-type item are unusually simple. As long as a woman's body has more than 10% of the innate impurities in her body, she can contract it." "Old man, how can you compare the things you've taken out with the things I've taken out?" After saying that, the woman turned her head and took out a paper-like source-type item with a shake of her hand. "Group owner, the elemental source-type item I'm bidding for is a wood elemental variant, paper elemental." Lin Yuan did not expect that someone would take out an elemental source-type item in his group welfare auction. When he had participated in the private auction and obtained the elemental source-type source sand, he had spent such a small price to buy it. It was because the contract conditions for source-type items like the source sand were too harsh. In a situation where it was difficult for spirit chi professionals to comprehend willpower runes, few people would be willing to sacrifice 2 willpower runes to contract a source-type item. Even if this source-type item was a rare elemental source-type item. Although the elemental source-type item paper elemental that the woman had taken out sounded a little unorthodox, the contract conditions were too simple. First of all, the elemental source-type item required the contractor to be a female. In this world, spirit chi professionals were either male or female, so half of them met the requirements. As for the requirement to remove 10% of the body's impurities, it might sound a little harsh, but it was not impossible for people with a certain amount of resources to use some means. For example, the nectar brewed by the 2 silver stamen gold luster caches in front of the Radiant Moon Palace could directly remove more than 90% of the innate impurities in the body. It could even remove 100%. The nectar brewed by the silver stamen gold luster caches after advancing to suzerain could even remove the impurities in the soul. Although there were not many spiritual ingredients in this world that could remove the impurities in the body, some spiritual ingredients could be combined and concocted into a spirit liquid by a Class 3 creation master. It was not very difficult to remove 15% of the impurities in the body. Many top factions had gone to great lengths to obtain a drop of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar from the Radiant Moon Palace. This drop of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar could greatly improve the effect of the concocted spirit liquid and increase the effect of removing the innate impurities in the body by 30%. Second update, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. There are more at night. End of this chapter. Chapter 556. Therefore, the contract condition of the elemental source-type lifeform, paper elemental, was basically free. For some reason, when Lin Yuan heard about the paper elemental, he suddenly thought of the paper elemental. In his previous life, he had seen a member of the Akatsuki organization, Little Nan, in an anime. Lin Yuan was stunned by the sudden thought that flashed through his mind. Lin Yuan thought to himself, "I'm definitely not a Chunibya person." However, if Lin Yuan could obtain this elemental source-type lifeform, paper elemental, the only people around him who could contract it were Chu Si and Wen Yu. However, Chu Si was about to contract the fairy source-type lifeform, the burning sunflower. The fairy source-type lifeform, the burning sunflower, would undoubtedly have a natural restraining effect on the elemental source-type lifeform, the paper elemental. As a variant of the wood elemental, the paper elemental would quickly be incinerated by the burning sunflower. Therefore, only Wen Yu was suitable to contract this elemental source-type lifeform, paper elemental. Wen Yu was a support-type spirit chi professional. So far, her contracted phase, whether it was the sunlight egret or the earth surge golden lotus, did not have any combat ability. She was like a blank piece of paper that could contract any source-type lifeform at will. She did not have to worry about the new source-type lifeform restricting her. Lin Yuan was now in a deep dilemma. Whether it was Master Duan Li's 250 catties of platinum bismuth crystal or diamond chelene shining snake scale, or Wang Fuxiang's paper elemental. Lin Yuan wanted all of them. However, since this was a group welfare auction, Lin Yuan could only complete the transaction with the highest bidder even if he wanted all of them. Completing the transaction with the highest bidder was the most cost-effective choice for Lin Yuan. However, if he were to miss out on such a good thing that had appeared in front of him, he would truly feel uncomfortable all over. Lin Yuan could not help but think about how he could take all of the rare resources that Master Duan Li and Wang Fuxiang had offered. Lin Yuan glanced at Wang Fuxiang and replied, "Since there are elemental source-type lifeforms among the 20 source-type lifeforms you offered, naturally, your bid is higher." After receiving Lin Yuan's reply, Wang Fuxiang chuckled. "I really like these Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that Sir Group Admin is auctioning. I just don't know if there will be another chance to bid for such quality Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in the future." Wang Fuxiang's question made everyone, including Duan He, who had their eyes on the elemental pearls, pricked up their ears. They were ready to hear what Lin Yuan, who was the group administration. After hearing Wang Fuxiang's question, Lin Yuan's expression changed slightly, but he replied without hesitation. "This time, I will be auctioning off the Heavenly Maiden level elemental pearls as group welfare instead of the original 9. 8 purity to 9. 9 purity. This is because I'm 2 days late. The next group welfare auction won't be auctioning the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Instead, it will be the same as the first auction. The 30 flower brocade pearls will be auctioned together." Lin Yuan's words made those who pricked up their ears and waited for Lin Yuan's answer feel quite disappointed. Lin, and King, Lin, and Lin Yuan wasn't a fool. If he auctioned Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls of such quality again, he wouldn't be able to do so. In that case, some of the group members who wanted to auction the elemental pearls would hold back when bidding, and would wait for the next auction to see if they could auction it at a lower price. Lin Yuan. Yun. Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan understood the principle that things were precious when they were rare. Even if the 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls could help Lin Yuan collect a large number of resources, he would not always conduct such group welfare auctions in the group. However, Lin Yuan didn't say anything definite. He only said that the next group welfare auction would be 30 flower brocade pearls. As for what the group members who were auctioning the group welfare thought, the benevolent see benevolence, and the wise see wisdom. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's answer, Wang Fuxiang looked at the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls on the plate that Listen was holding. "If I can take out more resources to auction, then, I wonder if I can calculate the final price of the elemental pearls and auction off 12 more Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls." When Lin Yuan heard Wang Fuxiang's question, he decisively shook his head and replied calmly, "No." Lin Yuan was extremely willing to let Wang Fuxiang bid for the 2 sets of Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls at the auction price. He felt that the current offer had reached his bottom line. However, looking at the smell of gunpowder and the restless big shots, Lin Yuan knew that even if the elemental pearls did not reach a sky-high price, he would still be able to earn a lot. At this price, Lin Yuan knew that even if the elemental pearls did not reach a sky-high price, if Wang Fuxiang could bid for 2 sets of elemental pearls at this price, it would be double the joy. For Wang Fuxiang to ask such a question, it meant that she had the purchasing power. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh at Wang Fuxiang's confidence and financial resources. As expected of a woman who had killed hundreds of men and controlled hundreds of men's legacies. However, the rules of the group welfare auction had been set by Lin Yuan when he first decided to conduct the group welfare auction. Lin Yuan was the owner of the Purchase with No Loss store and the owner of Sky City. He was also the owner of Sky City. Naturally, he could not change the rules of the group welfare auction. Even if Lin Yuan wanted it very much, he could only reluctantly reject it. After being rejected by Lin Yuan twice in a row, Wang Fuxiang could not help but pout. She looked at Lin Yuan coquettishly and did not sit down again. She just stood there gracefully, waiting for the others to place their bids so that she could continue to bid. Master Duan Li's face turned red at Wang Fuxiang's words. However, just as Master Duan Li was about to retort, a rumor suddenly came to her mind. Suddenly, he thought of a rumor and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth with extreme fear. However, Li Xiaotiao, who was standing beside Master Duan Li, could vaguely hear his cheap master say something along the lines of an old woman over 100 years old. Li Xiaotiao stared dumbfounded at Wang Fuxiang, who looked like a charming woman in her 30s, and couldn't help but shiver. However, since there were already other people bidding, Li Xiaotiao was not sure if he had been hallucinating. Master Duan Li looked hesitant, but when she saw the elemental pearls on the plate in Lissant's hands, she made up her mind. I'll reward unparalleled. There will be more later. Hihi, but it might be a little late. Everyone should rest early. End of chapter. Chapter 557. After making up her mind, Master Duan Li looked like she was about to cut her own flesh. In less than a moment, his expression of enduring the pain and cutting his own flesh turned into one of confidence. But Master Duan Li was no longer in a hurry to bid. Instead, he sat there calmly, waiting for the final moment to launch an instant kill. Li Xiaotiao did not see the confident expression on his master's face. He felt that his cheap master had shriveled up in front of this woman called Wang Fuxiang. In terms of wealth, Wang Fuxiang had completely crushed him. Li Xiaotiao knew that his uncle, Duan He, was also here to participate in the auction, but his uncle had yet to make a bid. Li Xiaotiao wanted to sneak a peek at his uncle, but he recalled his uncle's ferocious gaze. Li Xiaotiao quickly turned around and continued to look at Wang Fuxiang. Compared to his uncle's ferocious gaze, Wang Fuxiang was much more attractive. Even if Wang Fuxiang was an old granny over 100 years old, her alluring appearance was definitely more pleasing to the eyes than her uncle. Wang Fuxiang had already made another bid, crushing several people who had outbid her. After taking out the elemental source-type item, the paper elemental, Wang Fuxiang did not take out anything more rare. But whenever someone outbid her, Wang Fuxiang would add a source-type item that outbid the other party's bid. Among all the bidders, Wang Fuxiang's bid was the simplest and clearest. Li Xiaotiao couldn't help but think, give me a hug from a rich woman when she only used source-type items, which could be called foundational resources, to bid. But when he thought of Wang Fuxiang's age and her dead husbands, boyfriends, girlfriends, and lovers, Li Xiaotiao felt that it was better for him to hug his cheap master. Li Xiaotiao felt that it was better for him to hug his cheap master who had failed in the bidding. Lin Yuan's face behind the mask was expressionless, but in fact, his brain was working furiously. He was racking his brains to think of a way to auction off more elemental pearls without breaking the rules he had set. At the same time, he would get all the resources he coveted. He had already thought of a way, but it required a prerequisite that was very difficult to achieve. Now, he could only wait and see if these bidding group members could create the prerequisites he needed. Duan his brows furrowed even tighter. During the auction, Duan his mind was no longer on Lin Yuan. Instead, he paid more attention to the woman named Wang Fuxiang. Duan he did not expect to see someone like Wang Fuxiang in the fan club. In Duan his heart, this woman was an unfathomable mystery. In terms of wealth, even when Duan he had the most resources, he did not have the confidence to compete with Wang Fuxiang. Wang Fuxiang had cursed a total of 158 husbands, boyfriends, male friends, and lovers to death. None of these 158 people were ordinary people. Half of the people killed by Wang Fuxiang were creation masters. Most of them were Class 3 creation masters, but there were only 3 Class 4 creation masters. However, among these 3 Class 4 creation masters, one of them was a pinnacle Class 4 creation master. Moreover, Wang Fuxiang's last husband was a pinnacle Emperor-class expert with a suzerain Myth 3 Fei. 30 years ago, when Duan his strength had just reached King class, he had joined the Spirit Guards. Back then, Duan his first mission was to investigate Wang Fuxiang under the leadership of a guard envoy. However, after a thorough investigation, he found out that all the men related to Wang Fuxiang had died in accidents. Among them, the pinnacle Emperor-class expert had met with an accident when he was with his team. It was precisely because all the evidence pointed to an accident that the spirit guards, who were investigating this unusual incident, could only hastily write down the conclusion that Wang Fuxiang's life was too tenacious in their investigation. From the start, Duanhe was certain that Wang Fuxiang was not as simple as she seemed. After staying in the spirit guards for less than a year, Duanhe withdrew from the spirit guards. It was also during this year that Wang Fuxiang used all the inheritance that she had to establish an organization that specialized in the appraisal of precious luxury goods. Lang Yue Pavilion. In the beginning, the Lang Yue Pavilion only appraised luxury goods made from rare spiritual ingredients and rated the same type of luxury goods. But slowly, after some expensive luxury goods were appraised by the Langya Pavilion and received a high star rating, their prices would continue to increase. The Langya Pavilion had been in business for 30 years. Now that Jewel Grace Pavilion had appraised and rated luxury goods, it could give a luxury item a higher value and definition. And the person who single-handedly created all of this was this woman named Wang Fuxiang. Even now, Duanhe could not imagine how much wealth Wang Fuxiang possessed. However, there was probably no one else here who knew Wang Fuxiang's identity as Pavilion Master Lang Yue. Duanhe knew that if he hadn't coincidentally participated in Wang Fuxiang's investigation, he wouldn't have such a clear understanding of her. However, understanding was one thing. Now was the time for bidding, and Duanhe would not be careless. Duanhe stood up and said in a deep voice, "I offer 27 source-type items and a drop of suzerain myth-I dry swamp toad's blood essence." Duanhe's sudden bid made Lin Yuan narrow his eyes. At the same time, the other bidders gasped. No matter how rare Wang Fuxiang's elemental source-type item, the paper elemental, was, in essence, just a source-type item. However, the essence blood of a suzerain myth-I Fei was at a level that only Emperor-class experts could come into contact with. The dry swamp toad was a poison-type Fei, so its essence blood was rather unorthodox compared to the essence blood of other suzerain myth Feis. When the essence blood of other suzerain myth-I Feis was blended into spirit fluids, it could nurture other Feis of the same type. However, the essence blood of poison-type Feis was an exception. Using the essence blood of a poison-type Fei to nurture a poison-type Fei might cause the poison-type Fei to be poisoned to death. However, the suzerain myth-I dry swamp toad's essence blood was enough to suppress Wang Fuxiang's paper elemental. Upon seeing that Duanhe had also joined the bidding, Lin Yuan was delighted, even though he had plans to take Duanhe under his command. Although he had the intention of taking Duanhe under his command, it was still unknown whether Duanhe's character could meet his requirements and whether his conditions could move Duanhe. Therefore, he still had to earn Duanhe's money. First, end of this chapter. Chapter 558. If it was Duanhe who won the bid for these 12 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls in the end, even if Lin Yuan recruited Duanhe later, the 12 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls would still be Duanhe's personal belongings. Duanhe was undoubtedly a strong competitor for Wang Fuxiang. Only when the price of the group welfare auction really reached a price would it be considered to have met the prerequisites that Lin Yuan had requested. When Wang Fuxiang heard that the price she had offered was lowered once again, she was startled. For some reason, Wang Fuxiang shot a glance at Duanhe, who was fuming with anger. "What use do you stinky men have for these female elemental pearls from the dreamy cloud lake? Such a magnificent thing should be worn on my neck. It complements my snow-white neck." Duanhe subconsciously glanced at Wang Fuxiang's neck when he heard her words. Duanhe couldn't help but feel that Wang Fuxiang's words were true. Duanhe could not help but feel a chill run down his spine when he thought of this. Duanhe hurriedly moved his gaze away and spoke in a low voice. 9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls are used to nurture Feis. The extremely pure elemental energy is the best spirit herb to transform a pure-type Feis bloodline. After hearing Duanhe's words, Wang Fuxiang slapped the back of the chair in front of her and said softly, "I offer 30 source-type items, which include the elemental source-type item, paper elemental, that I previously bid for. You are actually planning to use the pearl to nurture Feis for the Cloud Dream Lake's Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls? What a waste. Hehe, if a person like you doesn't live a poor life, who would? Duan, his expression immediately darkened. Without hesitation, he raised his bid to suppress Wang Fuxiang's. At that moment, Listen, who was standing beside Lin Yuan, looked at the time and said in a clear voice. There are still 2 minutes before the auction ends. If you want to bid, hurry up. As soon as Lisan's voice fell, another big shot in the group got up to participate in the bidding. However, as soon as the price was announced, it was immediately suppressed by Duan, his bid. The big shot whose bid was suppressed sat on the chair with a regretful look on his face and crossed his legs. Obviously, he had completely given up on the idea of continuing to bid and had turned into a spectator. At this moment, Master Duan Li, who had been sitting silently in her chair, stood up. My original offer remains unchanged. I'll add another 250 catties of platinum 1000 opportunity bismuth crystals and an earth phase sun reflection king lotus. Wang Fuxiang and Duan, his faces darkened at Master Duan Li's words. Wang Fuxiang cursed silently. This old thing is a creation master, yet he is willing to use the Earth Fey Reflection King Lotus to make a bid. What a lunatic. Lin Yuan had already given up on his original plan. He was thinking of using other methods to obtain the rare spiritual ingredients he needed from Master Duan Li. However, Master Duan Li was still as determined as ever. She joined the battle against Duan He and Wang Fuxiang. Master Duan Li's offer fulfilled half of Lin Yuan's initial expectations. However, whether or not Lin Yuan's plan could be carried out depended on Duan He and Wang Fuxiang. If Duan He and Wang Fuxiang refused, Lin Yuan would still be able to obtain everything Master Duan Li offered. It even included an earth spirit, the Sun Reflection King Lotus. It was simply too profitable. Lin Yuan had previously wanted to expand the man-made lake in the return from Faraway Manor and build a water garden on it. The most difficult part of this idea was how to make the water garden float on the lake. As a Class 5 spirit craftsman, Hu Quan's design would definitely not be simple. Just the foundation of the water garden would be a huge project. If Lin Yuan could obtain the Earth Fey Sun Reflection King Lotus and plant it in the center of his man-made lake, then, after the Reflection Sun Monarch Lotus matured, it would have a mountain-like volume and 32 lotus leaves. The surface area of each lotus leaf would be enough to build a unique pavilion on top of it. As long as the Sun Reflection King Lotus grew, it would be equivalent to growing the skeleton of a water garden on top of the man-made lake. All of Hu Quan's designs and constructions could be built on the Sun Reflection King Lotus leaves. Furthermore, as an Earth Fey, the Reflection Sun King Lotus' main ability was to absorb enough sunlight with its white lotus leaves. The lotus root that seals the sunlight in itself grows at the bottom of the water and spreads out like ivory. In the evening, after the sun had set, the lotus roots under the water of the Sunshine King Lotus would release the stored sunlight. It was as if it was night above the surface of the water, but it was daytime under the water, giving off a warm glow. It made the surface of the water look like a dazzling daytime for 24 hours. Even though the Reflection Sun King Lotus wasn't considered a powerful Earth Fey among the plant-type Earth Feys, the Reflection Sun King Lotus was not considered a powerful Earth Fey. However, the Reflection Sun King Lotus function was equivalent to giving the plant phase in the water garden double the light. Sunlight could allow these flowers, which required a lot of sunlight, to bloom even more luxuriantly than usual. With the Reflection Sun King Lotus, the artificial lake in the return from Faraway Manor would definitely be made into a fairyland with the contributions of Hu Quan, a Class 5 spirit craftsman, and Jiao Hansong, a variety of rare flowers. In addition, the man-made lake only had the immortal fish that Lin Yuan intended to rear. Perhaps when night fell, the water would automatically ripple with the colorful aurora under the warm afternoon sun. After a short pause, Duan He and Wang Fuxiang unexpectedly added a few more source-type items in unison. Their bids were already comparable to Master Duan Li's. This made Master Duan Li curse in her heart, 2 lunatics. Master Duan Li's confident expression also disappeared in an instant. However, at that moment, Li Tiaro, who was sitting beside Master Duan Li, was in high spirits. His cheap master and uncle were bidding fiercely like tigers. As the disciple and nephew of these 2 big shots, he was simply too cool. Just as Du He and Wang Fuxiang called out their bids, the corners of Lin Yuan's mouth under the mask revealed a happy smile. Now that the prerequisites had been met, it was time for Lin Yuan to reap the harvest. At that moment, Listen looked at the time. When Wang Fuxiang, Du He, and Master Duan Li were in a stalemate, he announced in a clear voice. There are 10 seconds left in the group welfare auction. Hearing Listen's announcement, Wang Fuxiang gritted her teeth and said in a sweet voice, I'm willing to add 3 more source-type items. I'm willing to add 3 more source-type items on top of my previous bid. Baidu read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 559. Before Wang Fuxiang could finish her sentence, she heard a clear voice. Your bid is too high. Don't raise it anymore. Wang Fuxiang had wanted to raise the price, but she was suddenly interrupted. Her frown deepened even further. However, when she realized that the person who interrupted her was the group moderator, Lin Yuan, she raised her brows in surprise. Wang Fuxiang did not expect the group moderator's voice to sound so young. It also had an indescribable magnetism to it. All in all, Wang Fuxiang felt very comfortable when she heard his voice. When Lin Yuan stopped the auction, everyone, including Duan He and Master Duan Li, turned to look at him. Lin Yuan felt everyone's gaze. He grabbed a handful of elemental pearls from Listen's tray and said, The purpose of the group welfare is to provide benefits to everyone. The purpose of group welfare is to give benefits to everyone. The price you bid for these Heavenly Maiden level elemental pearls is too high. It goes against the original purpose of group welfare. Lin Yuan's words could be said to be righteous to the extreme. At that moment, it was as though Lin Yuan was possessed by justice, and his righteous voice made everyone freeze in place. Even though this was a group welfare auction, it was no different from an ordinary auction in the eyes of everyone. This was because Lin Yuan was willing to auction the 9 Purity Cloud Dream Lake Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls in the group. This was already considered a group welfare. Moreover, the person who won the bid could choose any of the 48 pearls. As for the final bid, it was up to each person's ability to win the item. When Lin Yuan suddenly stopped the auction because of the high bid, everyone felt a trace of warmth in their hearts. The atmosphere in the Purchase with No Loss Stores fan club was especially good. However, as the group moderator, Lin Yuan, was always lurking. Now that he had stopped the bidding, the group members could feel the hidden gentleness of the group moderator who loved to lurk and grumble. Wang Fuxiang could also feel the kindness of this strange masked young man in front of her. However, Wang Fuxiang had to win these 12 Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls no matter what. This was because Wang Fuxiang had already made up her mind when she raised the bid. Group moderator, you may have stopped the bidding, but this will be my last bid. Why don't you give this Dreamy Cloud Lake's female elemental pearl to me? Duan He and Master Duan Li had a mental battle the moment Lin Yuan stopped them. Duan He was really out of ammunition now. If he wanted to increase his chips again, he could only bet the spiritual materials he had prepared for his main Fey to break through to Myth 2. Reason told Duan He that he couldn't continue like this. Therefore, after calming down for a moment, Duan He decisively gave up bidding. However, Master Duan Li still had some foundation. As a Class 4 creation master, Master Duan Li had a similar tendency to stash away like a rat. Master Duan Li had been working hard to earn money, but she rarely spent it. As a result, Master Duan Li had a lot of resources at her disposal. Master Duan Li clenched her fists as she looked at the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls on the plate. Wasn't it just a few more source-type items? I will go back and risk my old bones to nurture a few more Fays to earn back the money. After making her decision, Master Duan Li stepped forward and said to Wang Fuxiang, After you're done, I'll do it again. It's not like you're the only one who can bid. I must get these elemental pearls. Wang Fuxiang laughed at Master Duan Li's words and was about to say something. At that moment, Wang Fuxiang heard Lin Yuan speak again. If you guys continue to fight, I won't know how to bid for the next group welfare auction. How about this? Both of you take a step back. Wang Fuxiang hurriedly said, I can't take a step back. I can't take a step back in this kind of situation. Master Duan Li also hurriedly expressed her opinion. I'm not afraid of a high bid. Someone else will be the one to step back. Lin Yuan fell silent, giving others the impression that he was in a difficult position. However, Lin Yuan had already given Wang Fuxiang and Master Duan Li dozens of praises in his heart. Lin Yuan glanced at Duan He. He knew that Duan He's silence meant that Duan He had decided to withdraw from the auction. There was nothing in Duan He's bid that Lin Yuan coveted. Lin Yuan had no intention of taking a drop of the suzerain myth-I poison-type dry swamp toad's essence blood. After all, Lin Yuan still had a lot of suzerain myth 2 essence blood from the mother of bloodbath and the suzerain myth 2 dry swamp toad. Even though he knew that Duan He had no intention of continuing, Lin Yuan still looked at Duan He and asked, "Do you still want to bid for these elemental pearls? Do you still want to bid for these elemental pearls?" Duan He had already weighed his current situation over and over again, and felt that he had gotten a little carried away just now. If he really bought these 12 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls, what would happen to the phase evolution? Even if he could sell these Cloud Dream Lake Heavenly Maiden grade pearls, he had never sold them before. He was not sure if he could sell the 9 Purity Cloud Dream Lake Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls at this auction price. Duan He understood from Lin Yuan's action of stopping the auction because the bid was too high. There were probably not many women like Wang Fuxiang who were crazy about pearls and were also rich. Duan He said straightforwardly, "Since both of them are willing to give in, I'll withdraw. This will save the group owner some trouble." Lin Yuan thought to himself. Duan He's withdrawal was rather cool. Since Duan He had already made it clear that he was withdrawing, Lin Yuan did not need to spend any more effort on him in this group welfare auction. Lin Yuan sighed as though he was in a difficult position. He then looked at Wang Fuxiang and Master Duan Li. "Since both of you want it and won't give in, then I'll take a loss. Just treat it as 2 sets of Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls." With that, Lin Yuan gestured for Listen to bring over another tray. Everyone was stunned by Lin Yuan's action. This was a good way to prevent the elemental pearls prices from rising. However, no one understood what Lin Yuan meant by "I'll take a loss." It seemed that no matter how the group owner auctioned it, he would not be at a loss, right? At that moment, Listen was already holding another tray in his hand. Lin Yuan waved his hand, and another 48 Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls of each of the 4 elements were scattered on Pan Zheng. However, there were 2 elemental pearls on this tray that were obviously different from the Cloud Dream Lake pearls. These 2 elemental pearls directly suppressed the other elemental pearls on the tray. Lin Yuan picked up one of them and placed it on the other tray. As a result, the entire tray of Cloud Dream Lake pearls was suppressed by the elemental pearls on this one elemental pearl. Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Clawbook House for free. Chapter 560. The pearls on the surface of one of the pearls were like the precipitated floating life of all ages. It was as if there was a magnificent city within the pearl. It was as if the entire pearl contained a flourishing world. Every time one gazed at the pearl, they would experience a different feeling. It was as if they were taking a stroll in the flourishing world within the pearl. Under the rise and fall of life and death within the pearl, this color gave off an extremely heavy feeling, bringing with it a strong sense of immersion. However, when one looked at it with the naked eye, one would feel that the entire pearl was extremely lively and light. Even a person who didn't like beautiful objects couldn't help indulging in this bead, which was like a floating life painting. Wang Fuxiang stared blankly at the 2 trays in Lin Yuan's hands and murmured, "The mountains are upright and solemn, the pearls cover the city walls. Group admin actually has a fixed life pearl in his hands. Group admin is really at a disadvantage. He is actually willing to take out such a priceless treasure for the group welfare. I really have to thank group admin for his generosity. With this fixed life pearl, the fixed life pearl that I obtained by chance 20 years ago will no longer have to collect dust in a jewelry box. These 2 can be paired together to make a pair of earrings to match my elegant earlobes." Lin Yuan had never heard of a pearl called fixed life before. However, he had only taken out the second most pure female elemental pearls in his spirit lock spatial zone. If the dreamy Cloud Lake pearls accounted for 95% of all the 9 9 purity Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls. This fixed life pearl made up 4% of all the pure pearls. Lin Yuan could tell just from the quantity that this fixed life pearl was definitely more precious than the dreamy Cloud Lake pearl. Master Duan Li moved closer to the tray and stared closely at the 2 fixed life pearls. She was as happy as a 300-kilogram fatty. Duan He, who had left the auction in a carefree manner, now looked as if he had eaten 100 kilograms of bitter gourd. He had given up on such a good opportunity without any hesitation. He did not deserve to be rich. Many of the other members who participated in the group welfare auction initially joined the group thinking that it would be easier for them to pick up the leftovers. But why do I feel that the leak-proof group leader is becoming more and more mysterious? Why were the items that he took out all the top-grade immortal items? At the same time, this mysterious group leader was so meticulous in his work, it was simply too awesome. Lin Yuan's expression remained the same, but he was inwardly happy about the resources that he had exchanged for through the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone's production of Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls. In this group welfare auction, the elemental source-type lifeform that was suitable for when you wasn't just exchanged for the paper elemental. There were also the rare spiritual ingredients that he wanted to nurture phase in the future, the Earth Fae Reflection Sun King Lotus that could be used to build the mana, and a bunch of source-type items. Such a harvest made Lin Yuan, who had seen the world, feel like he had suddenly become rich. At this point, the group welfare auction was officially over. The group welfare auction had ended, and many of the group members left the purchase with no loss store after watching the excitement. However, the excitement of this group welfare auction did not die down. However, the liveliness had shifted from the original purchase with no loss store to the purchase with no loss stores fan group. Furthermore, it quickly spread to the Star Web forum. Now, there were less than 10 people left in the purchase with no loss store. Wang Fuxiang and Master Duan Li also started to choose the elemental pearls from the 2 trays in Lisant's hands. Lin Yuan watched as Master Duan Li approached him with the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl in her hand. The smile on her aged face made the shape of a cornflower. Then, Lin Yuan heard Master Duan Li's question. Group leader, look at my Heavenly Elemental Pearl. It's of the water element, but Wang Fuxiang's Heavenly Elemental Pearl is of the earth element. I don't want a water-type elemental pearl. I wonder if you can help me exchange it. Master Duan Li glared at Wang Fuxiang as she spoke. Since Wang Fuxiang was the last to make a bid, Lin Yuan stopped her from making a bid. As a result, Wang Fuxiang had the first pick of the trays. Lin Yuan asked Master Duan Li directly. Then what kind of elemental pearls do you want for the fixed life pearl? Master Duan Li had asked Lin Yuan this question because she felt indignant that Wang Fuxiang had gotten the first pick of everything. Master Duan Li knew that it was extremely rare to find a Heavenly Maiden ranked elemental pearl like the stabilizing life pearl. Therefore, Master Duan Li did not expect Lin Yuan to exchange it for her. However, now that Lin Yuan had the intention to exchange it for her, Master Duan Li was pleasantly surprised. I'm fine with anything as long as it's not water type. Lin Yuan turned to Wang Fuxiang and asked, do you have any requirements for the attributes of the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearls? Wang Fuxiang had been carefully comparing the pearls on the tray. Other than the Earth-type Fixed Life Pearl, the other 47 pearls were Dreamy Cloud Lake Pearls. Even though the pearls Lin Yuan had taken out were similar in quality to the ones from Dreamy Cloud Lake, there were still some differences. However, there was still a slight difference in color and luster. Therefore, Wang Fuxiang was very serious about her choices. Wang Fuxiang didn't expect Lin Yuan to suddenly ask her about the attribute requirements for the Heavenly Maiden Grade Elemental Pearl. Wang Fuxiang's eyes lit up, and she replied happily. 20 years ago, I obtained a wind elemental pearl. If group leader Sir can help me match the pearl with a female elemental pearl, I'm willing to have more private conversations with group leader Sir. As she spoke, Wang Fuxiang's ink-like hair fell onto her shoulders. It made Wang Fuxiang look exceptionally charming. Wang Fuxiang lifted her eyes to look at Lin Yuan. When she looked at him, she even shifted her footsteps. She moved half a step closer to Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan could feel Wang Fuxiang's words and movements, and he almost choked on his own saliva. Immediately, alarm bells went off in Lin Yuan's mind. What's wrong with this woman? If someone else seduced him, they would at most covet his wealth. But if he was seduced by this woman, he would literally lose his life. How terrifying. Lin Yuan coughed lightly and took out a wind-type Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearl without a change in expression. He then placed it on the tray in front of Wang Fuxiang. Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Clawbook House for free. Chapter 561. Lin Yuan tossed the fixed life earth elemental pearl from Wang Fuxiang's tray to Master Duan Li. He also kept the fixed life earth elemental pearl from Master Duan Li's tray. Wang Fuxiang stood rooted to the ground and blinked. She did not expect her flirtatious seduction to be ignored. Wang Fuxiang chuckled and said, "Group admin, you helped me find a pair. Group leader, you've matched a pair for me. In order to thank you, I have to express my gratitude. If group admin has any rare items that you are unsure of, you can look for me on the star web." Wang Fuxiang then lowered her head and carefully selected the elemental pearls on the tray. Lin Yuan's face was filled with black lines. What the hell is going on? Don't spout nonsense. What do you mean by helped me find a pair? Wouldn't I be murdering someone else? Duan He had something to talk to Lin Yuan about, so he did not leave immediately after the auction ended. Naturally, he heard the conversation between Wang Fuxiang and Lin Yuan. Duan He thought to himself, if the Moon Empress finds out that Wang Fuxiang seduced her precious disciple, I wonder if the bright moon in the sky will suddenly shine and be dyed red. Being in love with Wang Fuxiang was far more dangerous than being in the Zheng family. While Wang Fuxiang and Master Duan Li were selecting the elemental pearls, Lin Yuan realized that the number of water elemental pearls on the tray did not decrease at all. Lin Yuan could not figure out what was going on. The water elemental pearls had always been in high demand among the other elemental pearls. Why were they so unpopular now? Wang Fuxiang and Master Duan Li left contentedly after selecting the elemental pearls. Lin Yuan realized that other than Listen, who was helping him collect the stools for the group welfare, there were two other people who were still in his store. One of them was Duan He. The other was Stream in the Cloud, the braised egghead, the first customer of Lin Yuan's Star Web store. Lin Yuan remembered that Stream in the Cloud was very excited when the group welfare was first auctioned. However, after the group welfare ended, she looked very disappointed. Like a little flower that was ravaged in a storm, it was listless and listless. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan walked up and asked Stream in the Cloud, "What happened? Your mouth can at least be tied to a donkey's head." Lin Yuan looked at the braised egg head and realized that she was still wearing the little bee headgear, just like the first time he had seen her. However, after half a year, the originally bald head of the braised egghead had grown hair that reached her cheeks. From the looks of it, the braised egghead with hair was quite tranquil when it was quiet. When she heard Lin Yuan say that she was the best at tying a donkey, she immediately rolled her eyes. He said in a bad mood, "Did the donkey run out from the deep forest?" As soon as the words left her mouth, braised egghead realized that her words sounded a bit awkward. The braised egg head had originally come for the fire attribute Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. If it had been an ordinary Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearl, she might have been able to make a bid. However, the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls that Lin Yuan had taken out for auction had a purity of 9 and contained the presence of pearls. This made it so that the resources brought by the braised egghead weren't enough to bid on. She had come excitedly, but she could only become a spectator. Lin Yuan looked at the braised egg head suspiciously and felt that she seemed to be driving in the dark. However, Lin Yuan had no evidence. At that moment, Duan He walked to Lin Yuan's side and coughed lightly. "Group admin, can I trade 10-9? 8 purity wind attribute Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls from you? I'm willing to pay the price of 2 source-type items for each." Lin Yuan raised his brows when he heard how Duan He addressed him. When an emperor-class expert like Duan He addressed him as Sir, Lin Yuan was even more convinced that Duan He knew his identity. Lin Yuan turned to look at Duan He. Just as Duan He was getting goosebumps from Lin Yuan's gaze, Lin Yuan said, "The price is reasonable." "The price is reasonable. No problem. It's just that it's almost the new year. You can trade with me after that. Lin Yuan didn't reject Duan his request. 2 source-type items for 198 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearl was already at least 30% higher than the market price. A 9.8 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearl was just a spiritual ingredient. It was completely different from a luxury item like a 9.9 purity Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearl. Duan his price made Lin Yuan have no reason not to trade. The production of elemental pearls in the spirit lock spatial zone was not low, and this trade could build a communication bridge with Duan he. After Lin Yuan investigated Duan his character, he could use this bridge to make a move on Duan he. Upon hearing that, Duan he thanked him and left the Star Web store in a hurry to find his nephew, Li Xiaotiao. When Yun Shi heard Lin Yuan and Duan his conversation, her eyes lit up. Lin Yuan, I also want to buy 3 fire attribute Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls from you. As the braised egghead spoke, Lin Yuan suddenly noticed a flash of joy in her eyes. Lin Yuan immediately knew that she was disappointed because she didn't get the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls. Lin Yuan naturally had no reason to reject the braised egghead's purchase request. Not only was she Lin Yuan's first Star Web customer, but the custom-made web-spraying spiders had also allowed him to earn more than 1 radiance dollar. It was also because of this that Lin Yuan had earned her first bucket of gold. This allowed Lin Yuan to have more capital to use the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone for rapid development. At the same time, the purchase with No Loss Stores fan club had been established by the braised egghead after she completed the trade with him and saw that he didn't have a fan club yet. In fact, Lin Yuan had truly witnessed a battle between White Devil and Unknown Flame, who were the top youths. Lin Yuan had set his first goal after becoming a spirit chi professional. The braised egghead was also a witness beside him. Lin Yuan realized that the braised egghead was really everywhere. With just a few words, Lin Yuan finalized the trade with her. The braised egghead smiled brightly and said, Lin Yuan, is this considered as me getting special treatment? Lin Yuan, does this count as me getting special treatment? Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan only had one thought, and that was that high-class creation masters were simply too awesome. To a certain extent, the saying that something was precious when it was rare was the truth of price. He had only given the braised egghead the lowest market price and hadn't earned any money from her. However, the braised egghead felt that she had gained a huge advantage. Upon seeing the braised egghead's silly smile, Lin Yuan blurted out without thinking. What kind of preferential treatment made you so fat? It was almost the new year, and it was inevitable that the braised egghead had gained a few kilograms. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, the bright smile on her face turned into an indignant expression. She couldn't help but stomp her feet in anger. All of a sudden, the braised egghead felt that Lin Yuan seemed to be as annoying as that fellow who had taught her to cheat in the forum, causing her to be the last in class. She should really let Lin Yuan be bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. Then, she would let Lin Yuan drink more hot water with the Radix Isatidis and clean his wounds. Then, she would find a cool and ventilated place to lie down under the shade of a tree to prevent the corpse from smelling. If she could afford it, it would be best to lay a cold mat under him. The first one was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 562. The braised egghead snorted. Deep in the mountains, the big spider will go to your house to find you. After saying that, she skipped out of the Star Web store. Lin Yuan touched the back of his head and wondered if the braised egghead had become stupid because of her long hair. Why was her brain so strange? Lin Yuan watched as the braised egghead skipped to the door. Just as he was about to remind her, he realized that his reminder was too late. When the braised egghead crossed the threshold, she fell on her butt, and the little bee hat on her head fell to the ground. This scene was just like the first time. Deep into the night, Lin Yuan, who had logged off the Star Web, entered his Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. He replaced the batch of completely jade-textured wood that had matured while he was unconscious in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Just as Lin Yuan was preparing to nurture those flower brocade pearls that had completed their mutation under the high concentration of spirit chi, he found that one of them had actually turned completely golden. Among these flower brocade pearls that he had nurtured, A green flower brocade pearl with a hint of pink had actually mutated into a golden color. Lin Yuan used Morbius True data to check and found that this fei was no longer called the flower brocade pearl. It was called the golden lotus brocade. Fei name, golden lotus brocade, fei species, Crassulaceae windmill grass, fei grade, bronze, 1/10, fei type, wood, fei quality, elite abilities sad smiley pellet juice, increases the juice content in the original plant's leaves and concentrates the juice into colloid when there is sufficient nutrition. Leaf wrap, when the leaves mature, a layer of woody colloid will form on the surface of the leaves and completely preserve the energy in the mature leaves. Exclusive skill sad smiley active plant, after training, the plant part will grow into a new plant with sufficient nutrition. When the nutrients are exhausted, the new plant part will provide all the nutrients in the body to the mother plant. However, if the new plant produces a new active plant, it will break away from the mother plant's control and grow into an independent plant. Upon seeing the golden lotus brocade's true data, Lin Yuan immediately knew that the flower brocade pearls had undergone an unknown mutation when they evolved into flower brocade pearls under the high concentration of spirit qi. When Lin Yuan checked the golden lotus brocade's exclusive skill, active plant, he suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Suddenly, he thought of a possibility. With this golden lotus brocade bead, would he be able to cultivate golden lotus brocade beads on a large scale like the Blissful Sea clan? Based on the golden lotus brocade skills alone, it was clear that the golden lotus brocade was much more effective than the flower brocade pearls. The rich juice skill allowed the juice content of each leaf of the golden lotus stalk to far exceed that of the flower brocade pearls. Moreover, the wrapping leaves skill also resolved the problem of the flower brocade pearls leaves automatically turning black if not used for a period of time after they matured. Lin Yuan was sure that the appearance of the golden lotus brocade stalk would drive creation masters crazy. It was just that the golden lotus brocade trusses effect was much stronger than the flower brocade pearls. A real creation master would only be able to find out after experimenting. He held the dazzling golden lotus brocade pearl in his hand. Lin Yuan felt that a huge wave of wealth was crashing toward him. In Lin Yuan's opinion, apart from its function, this golden lotus brocade beads could also be regarded as a symbolic commodity. With this golden lotus brocade pearl, he would be able to use the spirit lock spatial zone more effectively in the future. He would no longer need to occupy space in the spirit lock spatial zone to nurture the flower brocade pearls. After tidying up the spirit lock spatial zone, Lin Yuan took a look at his leaf-shaped diamond fei storage box. Lin Yuan realized that the blood brew grapevine was completely different from before he had fainted. The old leaves on the blood brew grapevine had all fallen off. The newly grown leaves grew wildly, and many of the vines were already hanging down to the ground due to their small frame. Upon seeing the situation, Lin Yuan quickly took out some sturdy old pine wood and nailed a giant frame for the blood brew grapevine. Afterward, he took out an even bigger jade basin and filled it with revival soil that had been watered with grasswood spring water. Lin Yuan then fixed the frame in the giant bathtub and carefully transplanted the blood brew grapevine. The blood brew grapevine was truly greedy. After absorbing so many eyes of relinquish, it did not choose to condense the blood brew grapes first. Instead, it chose to release its growth ability that had been suppressed. Previously, the owner of the blood brew grapevine had been afraid of wasting more blood essence, so he had only left one main vine for the blood brew grapevine to produce blood brew grapes. As soon as the other grapevines grew, they would all be cut off. Now, the blood brew grapevine in front of Lin Yuan was growing wildly under the nurturing of the Eye of Relinquish. This exuberant and flourishing appearance should be the blood brew grapevine's original appearance. Lin Yuan shrugged indifferently at the blood brew grapevine's greed. In any case, no matter how greedy the blood brew grapevine was, it was still a tool to provide blood brew grapes to the mother of bloodbath. As long as Red Thorn's Eye of Relinquish was present, Lin Yuan could nurture the blood brew grapevine effortlessly. Once the blood brew grapevine grew to its original appearance, Lin Yuan would be able to continuously harvest more. It would not be like when the blood brew grapevine only had one main vine and had to enter a slow recovery period after cutting off the blood brew grapes. Transplanting the blood brew grapevine was a huge project. Lin Yuan had to be 120% vigilant in order to prevent damaging the blood brew grapevine's tender roots in the soil. After doing all this, Lin Yuan hugged Genius and had a good sleep. In the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace, Cold Moon and Mystic Moon stood beside the Moon Empress. The Moon Empress' hand was gently breaking off a pot of diamond-fragrant peony. With every slight movement of the Moon Empress' fingers, the peony with the size of a human head would be broken off by the Moon Empress. The Moon Empress took a look at the pond water that was splashed up by the fishes in the pond and casually inserted the broken fragrant peony into the pond. The Tower Cannon's 8th page, the Bloodshed Land's 7th page of war, and the Ash team under the 7th page of war are actually secretly operating in Radiance. It seems like the 7th page of war didn't learn its lesson 10 years ago. While speaking, the Moon Empress looked at the little rabbit that was using its long ears to wipe the carrot in its hand. She said softly, "Zishi, summon your main body back from the outer realm." Mystic Moon and Cold Moon, who were behind the Moon Empress, looked at each other and saw a trace of solemnity and joy in each other's eyes. It seemed like the young lord was in danger this time. The Moon Empress, who had been hiding her sharpness for 10 years, was now truly serious. 2nd page. Seeking monthly votes and recommendation votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 563. Under the deep and serene night sky, ice-cold waves were crashing against a long-decayed wooden board on the surface of the sea. Faint roars of sea beasts could be heard. Even at night, one could faintly see the silhouette of a huge sea beast in the deep sea under the wooden board through the starlight. A 10-centimeter-long silver fish swayed its tail in front of the wooden board. A thread wrapped around its tail carried the wooden board forward in the waves. The aura released by the silver fish made the dormant sea beasts in the deep sea feel a faint sense of fear. However, the silver fish had cracks like porcelain on its body, as if it could shatter at any time. Although the silver fish could release a terrifying aura, its life force was obviously abnormally weak. An old man on the wooden board with half of his body missing looked at the pale, sweaty, short-haired woman on his side and sighed. The old man's sigh was filled with worry, sorrow, and a hint of indiscernible despair. The short-haired woman hugged her head with both hands and curled up. Her body trembled as if she was having a spasm. After a long time, the short-haired woman recovered. The recovered short-haired woman was like a fallen leaf in the cold wind. She was unusually weak. The old man used his remaining half of his body to pick up a dead fish on the wooden board and handed it to the short-haired woman. "Erin, your sacred source lifeform has entered a near-death state. You will suffer the pain of this soul injury until the absolute love poppy's damaged source recovers." The short-haired woman clenched her fists tightly. The short-haired woman was already aware of this kind of injury. She used a marrow contract to let the sacred source lifeform fuse with her soul. This meant that the sacred source lifeform itself was a part of her soul. Her contracted sacred source lifeform, the absolute love poppy, only had half a stem and a handful of root hairs left. How could it be easy to recover? The short-haired woman said in a low voice. "Unfortunately, all of my fays are linked to the sacred source lifeform, the absolute love poppy. Now that the absolute love poppy's source is damaged and in a near-death state, my other fays are also in a deep sleep." The short-haired woman suddenly gritted her teeth. "I just didn't expect 7th page war to not be a human." Otherwise, before she could finish speaking, the short-haired woman covered her head again and trembled violently. It was obvious that he was suffering from the pain caused by his soul injury. The old man looked at the short-haired woman, whose soul had been injured, but his eyes were still filled with hatred. He propped himself up and used the other half of his hand to fiercely hit the short-haired woman's head as he shouted, "Erin, you are the Dark Envoy jointly chosen by the 7 Dark States. You are the only Lord Dark Envoy left in the 7 Dark States. What Lord Gloom Envoy can do is not only take revenge, but also stay alive." After a while, the short-haired woman who received the slap stopped trembling, but she did not raise her head. Hot tears flowed out of the short-haired woman's eyes, and the tears dripped onto her spiritual aura clothes that had already been soaked in seawater between her legs. The salty tears melted into the saltier seawater in the blink of an eye. Su Erin blamed herself. If she had not relied on her contracted sacred source lifeform, the absolute love poppy, she would not have been able to survive. If he had ordered Elder He to sneak attack 7th Page War with him as a dark envoy, Elder He would not have ended up in such a miserable state. Elder He was an Emperor-class expert and possessed a creation breed Fae. Even if half of old his body was destroyed, as long as he received treatment, he could completely recover. However, Elder His creation breed Fae, the Netherworld River Mother, had been killed by the 7th Page War. Elder His sacred source lifeform, the shuttle arrow shark, was also injured by the 7th Page War's sacred source lifeform, the brilliant war chariot, and its body was shattered. Along the way, Elder He paid the price of burning his own soul to allow the shuttle arrow shark to carry the two of them through the deep sea that was filled with powerful sea beasts. Su Iren knew that this old man who had always been by her side was burning his own life force to accompany her on her final journey. This kind of destined parting was as painful as a blunt knife cutting through flesh. After hitting Su Iren, Old He regretted it. However, Old He felt that he still had to say what needed to be said. After letting out a sigh, Old He took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Iren, look up at me." Su Iren slowly raised her head and saw Elder His pitiful state. Su Iren bit her lips tightly, and fresh blood flowed from her lips, dripping onto the wooden plank. Elder He was about to speak, but at that moment, the sea waves suddenly became bigger. The shuttle arrow shark, which was pulling the wooden plank to lead the way, immediately slowed down. It was clearly in the sea, but it was as if it was in a quagmire, unable to move an inch. Damn it, the dying shuttle arrow shark has finally been targeted by a wild creation breed Fae in the deep sea. While speaking, Elder His body spewed out a huge amount of spirit chi, and the power of an Emperor-class expert caused the turbulent sea to pause. It was as if all the living beings in the 4 seas had fled 1,000 meters into the deep sea. The moment Elder His Emperor-class expert's power erupted, the shuttle arrow shark's body, which had already been shattered, immediately flickered with a kind of silver spatial energy. The spatial energy on the shuttle arrow shark's body directly formed dense spatial patterns on its body. These spatial patterns wandered on the shuttle arrow shark's body and were transmitted into the sea, forming a physical spatial conveyor belt. Su Iren watched all of this, and tears flowed down her cheeks and chin, mixing with the blood. Su Iren could not remember how many times she had seen this scene when the Dark Federation had been attacked by the 32 lead readers under 7th Page War. Elder His expression was abnormally serious as he instructed Su Iren. This place is the closest to the Divine Wood Federation on the Agorwan continent. The distance from here is enough for the shuttle arrow shark to activate a teleportation link. I'll teleport you over. Lord Dark Envoy, you must stay alive. Su Iren, you must stay alive. The elder did not say anything else. However, the 2 terms of address and the same exhortation were the words that Elder He wanted to say the most. Staying alive was the foundation of everything. Whether it was Su Iren as a dark envoy or a junior that he had watched grow up. These were all Elder His final wishes. The tears that flowed out of Su Iren's eyes were connected to threads. Before Su Iren could react, the silver river formed by the spatial link had already completely enveloped Su Iren. In an instant, Su Iren disappeared from the sea along with the silver river. Before the silver light completely dissipated, several scarlet tentacles had already spread out from the deep sea towards the surface of the sea. The tentacles wrapped around the shuttle arrow shark, which could only emit a faint light, and dragged it along with Elder He into the undetectable deep sea. The first one was even worse. End of this chapter. Chapter 564. Lin Yuan had already woken up early and was dressed neatly. It was almost the new year, and it was rare for Lin Yuan to wear spirit chi clothes with plenty of red accessories. Lin Yuan would occasionally wear brightly colored clothes. It made Lin Yuan look much younger than before. Genius was originally a little lazy in Lin Yuan's embrace, but after Lin Yuan put on the red vest that Wen Yu had specially made for Genius, Genius immediately became spirited. It wagged its 3 little tails and asked Lin Yuan in a childish voice, "Lin Yuan, does Genius look good in clothes?" When Lin Yuan heard Genius' question, he stretched out his hand and lovingly pinched Genius' little nose. "Little fellow, you have asked this question 10 times in just a short while. You little brat, you've asked the same question 10 times already. This vest that was suitable for genius was something that Wen Yu had made by chance. Since Wen Yu had never seen genius wearing clothes, she had given the red vest to Lin Yuan. Since Wen Yu had never seen genius wearing clothes, she had given the red vest to Lin Yuan. This morning, Lin Yuan had given it to genius on a whim and realized how much genius liked these clothes that could be worn. When genius heard Lin Yuan's praise, it felt as though it had eaten honey. Even though it had already heard Lin Yuan's answer over 10 times, genius was still happily wagging its little tail. Lin Yuan smiled and asked, "Why don't you ask Wen Yu to make more clothes for genius?" When genius heard this, it immediately jumped into Lin Yuan's embrace with joy. Lin Yuan rubbed genius' little head and couldn't help but lament that genius was still as sensible as before. However, the current Lin Yuan was already different from the Lin Yuan who had barely survived in the Xia region's Fei store. However, the current Lin Yuan was already different from the Lin Yuan who had barely survived in the Xia region's Fei store. Lin Yuan said to genius in a serious tone. Lin Yuan said to genius in a serious tone, "Genius, just tell me if you like anything in the future." At that moment, he heard a soft knock on the door of the attic. Lin Yuan opened the door and saw Cai standing at the entrance. Cai bowed and said, "Young lord, the Moon Empress is asking for you to have a meal in the inner palace." "Young lord, the Moon Empress is asking for you to have a meal in the inner palace. In addition, young Blue Moon Envoy has already been invited by Cha." When Lin Yuan heard the term young Blue Moon Envoy, he still couldn't react. However, he quickly realized that Cai was referring to Chu Ci. Lin Yuan nodded and said, "Then I will follow Aunt Cai to the rear palace hall." Along the way, he could not help but ponder. Now that he had the golden lotus brocade pearls, the place in the spirit lock spatial zone that used to nurture the flower brocade pearls was empty. How should he use the empty space in the spirit lock spatial zone? Every inch of land in the spirit lock spatial zone was related to his accumulation of resources. Therefore, he really needed to carefully consider the use of the spirit lock spatial zone and could not make a careless decision. When they reached the entrance of the Radiant Moon Palace's inner hall, Cai bowed and said, "Young lord, breakfast is prepared by the Moon Empress personally after waking up very early." When Lin Yuan heard Cai's words, he suddenly thought of what he could make for his master during the new year. After the meal, Lin Yuan spoke to the Moon Empress before leaving. "Master, you don't have to prepare meals for the new year. I'll come over to cook in the morning." When the Moon Empress heard the first half of his sentence, she thought that he was going to take something from the Leaning Moon Mountain. The Moon Empress was about to say that the Radiant Moon Palace had everything and that she didn't need to prepare anything. However, before the Moon Empress could speak, she heard the second half of Lin Yuan's sentence. A gentle smile appeared on the Moon Empress' face. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan lovingly and said a single word. "All right." Lin Yuan was quite confident in his culinary skills. Even though it was not as delicious as Liu Jie's, he felt that it was acceptable to eat the dishes he had cooked previously. However, after meeting Liu Jie, he no longer cooked for a few times. On the way back to the mansion, Lin Yuan contacted Ostrich Logistics. He was going to give away the elemental pearls from the group welfare auction and the elemental pearls that he had privately traded. After contacting Ostrich Logistics, Lin Yuan could feel Chu Ci's nervousness. Sensing her nervousness, Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows but did not say anything. Because they were about to reach the return from faraway manor not far from the outskirts of the kingdom. The people waiting to see Chu Ci in the manor were probably even more nervous than she was. As soon as he arrived at the mansion's entrance, he saw Wen Yu and the purple-haired girl beside her. When Wen Yu saw Lin Yuan, she greeted, "Young master." The purple-red-haired young lady waved her hand at Lin Yuan and shouted, "Mr. Deep Mountain Elder Lin, Ah Neng is back and can continue to be your exclusive courier." Lin Yuan knew that Ah Neng was busy participating in the S tournament organized by the Guild Alliance, so he asked, "Ah Neng, how was your result in the S tournament?" Ah Neng's eyes immediately lit up when she heard Lin Yuan's words. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's words, Ah Neng's eyes immediately lit up. "I used a hail of bullets to extinguish many people's pain. Ah Neng is just a substitute." I don't have to participate in the rest of the competition this year, but I'll be a main player in next year's S tournament. While speaking, Neng waved her fist as if to cheer herself up. When Lin Yuan saw Neng's expression, he cheerfully said, "Good luck." Neng had not been a courier for some time. However, she was no longer the very impatient and forgetful little girl who had done things when she returned to be Lin Yuan's exclusive courier. After Neng left, Lin Yuan found that Chu Xi and Wen Yu's hands were already holding each other's. Even if Chu Xi had known Wen Yu through the video, they had only just met. The two of them got along too fast. Could this be the legendary saying that friendship between women often only needed a second? Wen Yu was relieved when she saw Lin Yuan. During this period of time when Lin Yuan was not around, Wen Yu had been managing the mansion, especially when Liu Jie and Zhu Luo were unconscious. Nothing special had happened in the mansion during this period of time. The Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce's old rival, the Iron Wall Chamber of Commerce, had recently begun to suppress the Listening Heron Chamber of Commerce in all aspects, requiring Listen to constantly deal with it. There was only the unexpected visitor to the mansion not long ago. Wen Yu said to Lin Yuan, "Young master, Wind Mist City's Jiao family's core disciple, Gao Feng, who had a deal with you 7 days ago, came to look for you. You were unconscious at that time, so I said that you had something to do and went out to the mansion. In the next few days, young master's cell phone, which you left with the mother of Bloodbath, received a call from Gao Feng every day. I think Gao Feng should have something urgent to look for young master." Lin Yuan raised his brows. Gao Feng was actually looking for him in such a hurry. However, he did not know why Gao Feng was looking for him. Coincidentally, Lin Yuan also had plans to look for Gao Feng's help after the new year. He wanted to find some supreme-grade angelfish of bliss through Gao Feng's connections. The second was even better. End of this chapter. Chapter 565. This season was the most suitable for nurturing angelfish of bliss, which grew extremely fast in a cold environment. After growing into an adult, it would accelerate the speed at which it shed its fish coat in a warm environment. Now that the angelfish of bliss was nurtured to maturity, it would shed a layer of fish coat every once in a while when the weather was slightly warmer. Lin Yuan originally wanted to look for Gao Feng after the new year. He did not want to disturb Gao Feng during the new year and make him think about finding angelfish of bliss for him. Now that Gao Feng was looking for him, Lin Yuan could bring up his request to Gao Feng before the new year. The young angelfish of bliss were not as long as a finger, and they would only be the size of a palm even if they grew into adults. The artificial lake was already very large, and after the expansion, the area would increase by more than 2 times. No matter how many supreme-grade angelfish of bliss Gao Feng found, Lin Yuan could eat them all. When fish fays with colorful bodies like the angelfish of bliss swam together, they were several times more beautiful than when they swam alone. Lin Yuan nodded to indicate that he understood and said to Wen Yu. He said to Wen Yu, "I'll give Gao Feng a call later and ask what he needs." While Lin Yuan was speaking, he heard Liu Jie's voice behind him. "Young master, it's great that you're fine." After experiencing life and death with Lin Yuan in the dimensional rift, Liu Jie had used his body to fulfill the true intent of the shield on his retainer crest to help Lin Yuan block the fatal blow. Liu Jie's consciousness had become blurry. However, the enemies in the dimensional rift had still existed, and Liu Jie was naturally aware of how dangerous it had been. Liu Jie had been relieved when he saw Lin Yuan during the training, but now it seemed that he was especially at ease. Lin Yuan saw that Liu Jie was carrying many rare ingredients. Most of them were ingredients from some marine fish fays. Liu Jie had asked Lin Yuan what Chu Xi liked to eat and knew her taste buds. The mansion did not usually eat fish, so Liu Jie had obviously bought so many for Chu Xi. Lin Yuan was still a little worried about Liu Jie's insect queen. He asked, "Big brother Liu, you said that your insect queen had a problem with its mutation. How is it now?" Speaking of the insect queen, Liu Jie recalled his encounter from yesterday afternoon to this morning. He felt like he was in a dream. However, in this dreamlike half-day, Liu Jie had undergone a complete transformation. The insect queen has completed its mutation. The current insect queen has become very strong. Upon hearing Liu Jie's words, Lin Yuan raised his brows. Liu Jie had never been a flamboyant person. On the contrary, he was unusually down-to-earth and reserved. Now that Liu Jie said that the insect queen had become very strong, it was clear that the insect queen had become much stronger than before. Lin Yuan felt very happy for Liu Jie. Congratulations, brother Liu. When Liu Jie heard Lin Yuan congratulate him, his heart felt both a little heavy and a little relaxed. Before Liu Jie fainted, he learned about his and the insect queen's injuries. There was only one possibility for him to be able to survive from his injuries at that time. That was, Lin Yuan had immediately treated him. Therefore, when Liu Jie woke up and found out that Lin Yuan had fallen unconscious, he blamed himself. She always thought that Lin Yuan had used too much spiritual power to heal her, causing him to be in a coma for 7 days due to his severe injuries. After seeing Lin Yuan, Liu Jie felt sincerely relieved. Liu Jie felt that he was now truly qualified to be the sturdiest shield by the youth's side as he ran forward. Lin Yuan keenly noticed the change in Liu Jie's expression. Liu Jie was clearly much more confident than before. Liu Jie looked at Chu Ci, who was holding Wen Yu's arm, and immediately said, "Miss." Youths before Liu Jie could finish speaking, Chu Ci had already taken the lead and extended her hand toward him. "Big brother Liu, I've always heard Lin Yuan talk about you. I'm Chu Ci, you know." After saying that, Chu Ci winked at Liu Jie. When Liu Jie saw Chu Ci's extended hand, he put it over. His big hand wrapped around Chu Ci's small hand and shook it. "Chu Ci, I bought some fine scale star spot and fire-tailed snowbase. I remember Lin Yuan said that you don't like spicy food. I'll make sweet and sour fish and honey steamed fish for you." Chu Ci, who had been dependent on Lin Yuan since childhood, was exceptionally sensitive and good at feeling other people's emotions. Chu Ci had originally felt nervous about getting to know a new family of people. However, Chu Ci could now feel full of kindness from Wen Yu and Liu Jie's emotions toward her. Both of them looked at her with the doting gaze of an elder brother and elder sister toward their younger sister. This sudden feeling of having many people care about her made Chu Ci feel warm on one hand. On the other hand, there was a somewhat astringent feeling. Chu Ci had never known what Lin Yuan was busy with every day. Every time he called, he would keep asking about her recent situation as usual. Lin Yuan was clearly not a talkative person. However, whenever he was about to hang up the phone, he would always tell her about some small things in life that were good for her health. Lin Yuan had never said that he was working hard. Now that she saw everything in front of her, Chu Ci could imagine how hard Lin Yuan had been working. At that moment, the mother of Bloodbath, Endless Summer, and Hu Quan walked out of the mansion. They had obviously heard the conversation at the door. Endless Summer quickly stepped forward and placed her hand on Lin Yuan's shoulder to sense his condition. After confirming that Lin Yuan was fine, she walked up to Chu Ci and handed her a pink-purple diamond face storage box in the shape of a flower. After Chu Ci took the face storage box, Endless Summer said, "This is all the jewelry and clothes I've collected during this period. Here are all the jewelry and clothes I've collected during this period of time. Take a look and see if there's anything you like." Upon hearing Endless Summer's words, Lin Yuan hurriedly stepped forward. He snatched the diamond face storage box that Endless Summer had handed to Chu Ci and handed it back to her. "Endless Summer, keep these things well. Don't give them to Chu Ci." Lin Yuan still remembered that Endless Summer had a period of rural non-mainstream and agricultural heavy metals before. During this period, Endless Summer had bought the most jewelry and spirit chi clothes. Chu Ci was not of age yet, and her aesthetic standards had not yet been set. If he were to learn these things from Chu Ci and Endless Summer, what would happen then? The mother of Bloodbath stood behind Endless Summer and looked at Lin Yuan's red eyes with flickering light. After seeing Lin Yuan, the mother of Bloodbath had a lot to say to him. However, it recalled Mystic Moon and the Moon Empress words and its dereliction of duty as a path protector. The mother of Bloodbath suddenly did not know what to say to Lin Yuan. First, end of this chapter. Chapter 567. Lin Yuan listened to Liu Jie talk about the opportunities and experiences he had encountered while he was unconscious. Lin Yuan patted Liu Jie's shoulder heavily to express his congratulations. Since Liu Jie had already contracted a sacred source lifeform, the sacred source lifeform in Lin Yuan's hands could be left to the mother of bloodbath. After the meal, Lin Yuan was preparing to look for Zhu Luo to discuss some matters. When Lin Yuan returned to the mansion, the mother of bloodbath's cell phone suddenly rang. Lin Yuan looked down and realized that the caller was none other than Gao Feng. Lin Yuan raised his brows and picked up the phone. Gao Feng said straightforwardly on the other end of the phone, "Brother, I want to make a deal with you." Lin Yuan was slightly startled when he heard Gao Feng's words. Gao Feng was usually very forthright with his words. He always exuded the demeanor of an artistic youth, appearing to be abnormally free and easy. But now, Gao Feng's words were unusually serious. Lin Yuan knew that Gao Feng really had something very important to tell him. However, since Gao Feng said that he wanted to discuss business with him seriously, Lin Yuan became serious and asked, "Gao Feng, are you representing the Gao family to discuss business with me, or are you discussing business with me yourself?" When Gao Feng heard Lin Yuan's words, he fell silent for a moment. Then, Gao Feng asked seriously, "Is there any difference between the Gao family discussing business with you and me discussing business with you?" Lin Yuan replied, "If the Gao family wants to discuss business with me, I can naturally refuse. I will also try my best to get the most benefits. If you want to talk business with me personally, I'll agree if I can do it. Just treat it as a favor for a friend." When Gao Feng heard that, he felt a surge of warmth in his heart. "Brother, it's me personally who wants to discuss business with you. It's just that this favor might be a little difficult to help. If you think it's a lot of effort, just reject me directly." During this time, Gao Feng had also found plenty of people apart from Lin Yuan. He had used almost all of his interpersonal relationships. However, he didn't receive any actual help. Upon hearing Gao Feng's words, Lin Yuan could roughly guess why Gao Feng was looking for him. Gao Feng had traded completely jade-textured wood and high-quality bronze phase from him. Therefore, even if Gao Feng avoided these two things, he still couldn't avoid being a creation master. As expected, Gao Feng continued to speak. "Brother, I wonder if you can lend me some of your creation master resources? Just name the price." As soon as Lin Yuan heard that, he knew he had guessed correctly. However, Lin Yuan's guess was slightly off. Gao Feng didn't want a specific item, but creation master resources. Lin Yuan was ultimately different from regular creation masters. Lin Yuan's current weakness was that he would not be able to enhance a high-grade Fey even if he was beaten to death. Therefore, as long as his spirit chi professional rank did not increase, he would not have any way to nurture high-grade Feys. Enhancing high-grade Feys was Lin Yuan's most obvious shortcoming. Although he had used a lot of good things that only high-class creation masters could create, he did not have any creation master resources. In the past, he had always been responsible for all of the Sky City's creation master's labor. Gao Feng wanted to borrow creation master resources, but Lin Yuan couldn't possibly package himself up and mail him to Gao Feng or introduce his master, the Moon Empress, to Gao Feng, right? He was afraid that even if he introduced them, Gao Feng would not dare to invite them no matter what. All of a sudden, Lin Yuan had a thought that he needed to recruit creation masters. However, Lin Yuan had a requirement for the creation masters he recruited. Ordinary creation masters would not do. They had to be high-class creation masters. Only high-class creation masters could make up for Lin Yuan's current lack of creation master abilities. Creation masters were the most pampered group of people in the entire Radiance Federation and even the entire Spirit Chi professional community. Therefore, if Lin Yuan wanted to recruit a high-class creation master, he still needed to make a lot of plans. Even though Lin Yuan couldn't directly give Gao Feng creation master resources, he still asked, "What kind of creation master resources do you need?" Upon hearing Lin Yuan's question, Gao Feng spoke as though he was pouring out his grievances to a friend. "Brother, haven't you heard that this active period of the dimensional rift is different from the past?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan replied, "I'm not too sure about what happened during this period. Gao Feng felt it was a little strange that Lin Yuan didn't even know about this. Even if Lin Yuan had always been in the royal capital and not by the sea, he should also know about this major event that made many factions speechless and tearful. During this active period of the dimensional rift, the number of dimensional rifts is several times greater than usual. Among them, the water world dimensional rifts in the sea region are the most numerous. When the source-type items are taken out from the dimensional rifts, they will release a large amount of spirit chi before they close. To the phase on land, the large amount of spirit chi released from these dimensional rifts is a good thing. But it isn't all good for the phase in the sea region. Brother, I could still find the young elemental shellfish that you wanted previously. But now, even if my father appears, he won't be able to find them. The large amount of spirit chi released by these water world dimensional rifts has allowed all the elemental shellfish in the deep sea to evolve into the damn exploding pearl shellfish. Lin Yuan couldn't help but be dumbfounded. At this moment, Lin Yuan seemed to suddenly understand why Master Duan Li and Wang Fuxiang had avoided choosing the Heavenly Maiden grade elemental pearls during the group welfare auction. The dense spirit chi in the sea had allowed most of the elemental shellfish to evolve into exploding pearl shellfish. As a result, it would be impossible to find young elemental shellfish in the deep sea for a long period of time. Most factions nurtured the elemental shellfish to nurture foundational resources like the island whale. This caused the aquamarine elemental shellfish to be the elemental shellfish with the most attributes among all the elemental shellfish. The water-type elemental pearls consumed the most among all the elemental pearls. However, at a time like this, the rarer something was, the more valuable it was. It was understandable that the water-type elemental pearls had the lowest value among the elemental pearls. However, this was great news for Lin Yuan. How many water-type elemental pearls could he have? Most of the water elemental pearls he had were used to nurture the floating island whale. The other elemental pearls in Lin Yuan's possession had increased in value. At that moment, Gao Feng spoke again. I'm discussing with my father. I want to establish a rising faction and try my luck. That's why I'm building a marine fae breeding base. Brother, I won't hide it from you. I'm borrowing Creation Master resources this time because I want your Creation Master to help me nurture some insect pattern coral jade. First update. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. A new plot is about to begin. Hurry up. End of this chapter.